Will the meeting please come to order? So this is the study session for the Planning Commission of the City of San Clemente. It's Wednesday, October 8th, 2025. It's 5:05, and we're at City Hall. We have 4 commissioners present. 3 are missing. We have, we have 5? Yeah, we have 5 present. Thank you. So we have Steve Camp is missing, and who else is missing?
Patrick.
Yes, Patrick. Okay. So all other commissioners are present. That's the roll call. So for our study session, we do have an item that the city staff wants to present to us and the public regarding the local coastal program, otherwise known as the LCP. We have, as part of that scope, a brief touch on some geotechnical analysis, but majority will be spent on a parking study of our downtown area. And to kick us off, we have our senior planner, Christopher Wright. Christopher, it's all yours.
Good
Yes.
evening.
Was this supposed to be being broadcast or no? The study session?
I think this, yeah, the question is it supposed to be live stream? I assume so, but I don't know. You can check with the people on,
Another presentation.
yeah,
On the broadcast.
It's coming out.
I don't know. She says, yes, we're good, so we should be online even though your feed doesn't look like it is.
Okay.
But that's okay, we want to move on.
All right, good evening, everyone.
Yes,
Christopher Wright, Senior Planner. The study session this evening, it has 2 parts, as mentioned. The first is an update on the geotechnical report and policy recommendations that are grant-funded project, and then after that is going to be the parking discussion. So this is an update to an item we've talked about before. Last time we met, I gave an early overview of this effort to have resources for geologists and property owners when they're doing a development project to understand the type of geologic zones in the city and the coastal zone, so that when they're required to do a site-specific geologic hazards report, then they have a good leg up on that. They have some assumptions and idea of the type of issues that should be considered in preparing that analysis, so that it will inform their development project. And if the city does take permit delegation and certify a local coastal program, we would also be using that to facilitate our review through the public review process. So what I want to do is show you a couple things that are new here. First, there's been continued effort to map out different geologic zones and simplify some of those. There used to be more of them. And each of these zones is in a color. They have unique characteristics. So now you could click on the zone, and we'll work to make the window a little larger. But it has this table, and it identifies the type of zone, and then it has the type of hazards for that zone and the risk level for that. So you can quickly get a sense of the type of issues that someone would need to address in their report. And then you can click a link. This is not something functional just yet, but that link will take you to the report, and I'll show that in a moment. The other thing I wanted to highlight in the viewer are these camera views. So you could click one of these, and let's see, sorry, let me click one of these little cameras. Here, I'm gonna turn this off. Okay, so you could click these little camera icons, and it'll open up those annotated images. We gave you an example of those at the last meeting. So this highlights a number of the geological features along the coastline, that this aerial imagery was captured with a drone by our Ocean Lifeguard Department. And so they've gone and annotated this as an additional tool. This will be an appendix to a hazards resource that I hope I can easily go back to. Let me see here. There you go. I think this is it. Okay, so when you click the link in there in the zone, it will take you to a document, a resource. And this is just an excerpt of the document to give you a sense of the type of content. The document is going to outline the type of hazards in the coastal zone geologically and walk you through the characteristics of San Clemente's bluffs. And then later on in the document, it will have a discussion on the types of zones, and they're grouped. So in this particular case, there's different zones for coastal bluffs, and that section will go through and it'll talk about erosion, the type of hazards that are common that someone would need to consider. We're going to be identifying baseline rate of erosion that people would assume, and when they do their site-specific analysis, that's when the geotechnical expert will look at whether that site should have a lower or higher rate of erosion based on the individual site characteristics, but this would give them a head start to understand the area. And then I want to show you, like, later on in the document, there is this colorful comparison chart that goes over all the zones and the type of hazards and their risk levels. And then, like I mentioned before, there's going to be all these annotated images. So the body of work, it's intended to be a user-friendly guide for people to do their studies so that we can work with an applicant and try to have more certainty in the development review process. And that's all I have for you. I can take questions.
I think this is a step in the right direction. Very helpful, and, it will evolve, I'm sure, and I think the residents will find this very useful as well as any applicant. So thanks for sharing it. Commissioner McCann just wants to say a few words.
Did we have grant funding to do this?
We have grant funding, yep.
Who was it from, the Coastal Commission?
Yes.
Okay.
Maybe a couple other notes is that we did meet with the Coastal Commission to get their input on this effort once, and we're going to do that again in November. And I'm going to be reaching out to set up a meeting, and then the intent is to have a more polished version of these resources to provide to the Planning Commission when we distribute it to the Coastal Commission, and the intent is to return to you in early December to have more opportunity for you to actually look at the polished document.
And yeah, and again, I guess just to repeat what you said at the beginning, this is to position ourselves to become the permitting authority in the coastal zone. And I think from the feedback I hear from the community is they're looking forward to that. In particular, if there are individuals or groups of people that want to come to the city to try and remediate some of the risks that they have on their property that maybe today they can't get a permit for, but perhaps through the city's permitting authority, they could. So I would anticipate some of that. And I don't know if this would be an entry point for a resident if they're in especially a high risk, high hazard area, that the city would have a defined path for a resident to follow if they wanted to address it, what they need to do. Because I know there's a lot of confusion about what soils engineering the city will recognize, will accept, and what are the steps to ask for a permit to whatever shoring that they want to do. And so I would anticipate that this could be a great way to enable residents to have a path that they could follow, if we could define that, not just the hazard, but, okay, if you wanted to take out a permit to address this hazard, here are the things that you would need to do.
Yes, this is one piece of the project, so the intent is to take this body of work and inform then a number of recommendations on changes to policy and the regulations that are being drafted for the implementation plan. And then in addition to that, there'll be some work by this consultant to advise us on changes to our application to inform applicants on how to go about preparing their plans and submitting them to
Yeah.
the city.
Because I've been approached by a few residents in the coastal zone who have a bluff property and with just pure frustration that they can't get it remediated. And my stock answer is wait for the LCP. Just, you got to hang in there. Okay,
That is certainly a goal, is to provide more clarity.
yeah.
Yep.
Okay, do you want to introduce Jonathan then to take us through the parking study?
Sure, this is Jonathan. He's our parking consultant, CRA, and he'll be taking over for me.
Welcome, Jonathan.
Thank you, Planning Commissioners. Happy to be here and share some exciting data. All right.
Yes.
Yes, I do. Thank you. Hi, good evening again. My name is Jonathan Sanchez. I'm a senior transportation engineer with CR Associates, which is the consultant the city retained for the preparation of the parking and transportation demand management analysis for the city of San Clemente.
Is it not working?
I don't think so.
It's not working. Can we use the mouse again? Should be able to click like normal. There you go.
There we go. So as part of the project framework, some of the basic goals that we're trying to achieve with the parking and transportation demand management are to deal and develop a comprehensive implementable parking management program. And the way that this follows, or the framework would be first starting with an analysis of existing conditions, so that we can establish and determine what the baseline is in terms of parking occupancy through the different areas that were selected as being part of the study area, which I will share in the next few slides. The next step would be based on the current existing parking conditions, determining what would be some of the parking demand management strategies to try to alleviate and try to increase parking supply within the city. And then finally would be taking all those management strategies and documenting them in what would be the city's parking management plan. Before going further, this is a little bit of the project schedule. We kicked it off back in November of 2024. In December, we held our first public outreach meeting, in December. It was December 7th in Avenida Del Mar. And then throughout the year, we have been focusing on doing parking data collection, some other public outreach events, because I would like to point out, and which I'll go into a little bit of detail, as part of this study, we conducted parking counts or data collection during two seasons. We collected during what would be considered the off-peak, which was in January, and then later on in the year, sort of recently, back at the end of July, beginning of August, we conducted the second round of data collection, would be considered to be during the on-peak or the peak season of activity and parking when schools are in session, most tourists are in town, and that is when the second data collection. And right now, where we're at is here in October, where we're working on analyzing, the findings of the data and working closely with city staff and developing the parking demand strategies to eventually be documented in the parking management plan. This is a little bit of the overall of kind of like what I discussed. We start with data collection, then we start the parking analysis. A very important part of developing the parking management plan and transportation demand management plan is to also do some benchmarking as part of it. We looked at what other similar coastal cities are doing in the area. We looked at cities like Newport Beach, Laguna Beach, to the north, and also to the south, cities like in San Diego County that have similar characteristics of San Clemente, like Carlsbad and Encinitas. We looked at about 10 different cities. Then, it's an iterative process where we, share the information, the findings. We have different discussions with cities, different departments. We like to have them involved because, parking, it's not just something that is dealt, or shouldn't be just dealt in a vacuum by, the planning department, but we like to discuss and involve other departments like the police department, the financials department, to make sure that we're all on the same page. And finally, the documentation of the plan. These are some of the events that we have conducted in terms of public outreach. The first one, as you can see, we started back in December of 2024 with the Putting on the Glitz. Later on, we participated also in Earth Day. Unfortunately, that was cut a little short because of the weather. It was a lot of rain that came down on us that day. But later on, we also participated at the Cinco de Mayo event down at Maxburg Plaza Park, and finally down at the car show, and also in May 2025. And some of the items that we discussed or that we share with the public and during this public outreach efforts was we conducted surveys with some basic questions about parking trying to obtain feedback on what would the public be amenable to in terms of parking demand strategies such as paid parking, expansion of the trolley service, or other items like creating some employee exclusive parking, just different items just to trying to gauge where would the public stand. And of course, we would also share just general information about the project and where we were at. And there was great turnout at every event that we attended. So in terms of the study area, downtown, North Beach, Pier Bowl, Los Molinos, and El Camino Real were selected as the key focus areas in terms of public off-street parking. I've identified, and public off-street parking, of course, is basically talking about public parking lots. There's about 892 parking spaces in the city. Then on-street parking, or not in the focus area, I should say. Then in terms of on-street parking, there's over 3,000 spaces. And we've also conducted a survey essentially in terms of private off-street parking, which a little bit over 2,500 parking spaces. So in terms of the methodology and analysis that we employed to collect our data, so as I previously mentioned, we had 2 data collection periods, and what we used to document or to capture data is cameras with ALPR capability, mounted on vehicles, which we would drive and have staff driving on predetermined routes throughout the study area, capturing images of vehicles. Again, specifically focusing on the license plate. With the cameras had capability to do automated license plate readers. And some of our, going into the results that we found during both January, we conducted 2 data collection periods during both a weekday and during the weekend. And as is probably is no surprise, during both periods, the weekend was the busiest, identified as the busiest day. Specifically, we collected data on a Saturday. And within, the weekend in January and the weekend in July/August, we identified the period of 12 p.m. It's technically 12 p.m., between 12 p.m. and 2 p.m. Identified as a peak period, both, again, during the off-peak and the peak season, with definitely the summer period having about 62% overall occupancy. This means across both the public off-street and on-street. So now going a little bit into the by focus area specifically, also doing the comparison between January and July, we can definitely see July having higher numbers, and you can see specifically downtown, which we know there are some issues in terms of parking supply. We see over 85% occupancy with the off-street public parking lots going well above 90% occupancy. And I mentioned 85% because you're probably familiar with the 85% being considered in the parking industry and in terms of planning as the proverbial ideal number in terms of what would ideal capacity be. So, we see downtown and definitely the Pier Bowl surpassing during the summer the 85% capacity, with other areas such as North Beach and Los Molinos also seeing high occupancy during the summer. So now I'd like to. These are just graphs very similar to what I was showing, but this also includes private parking. Again, the overall takeaway, as it's no surprise, during July we see higher overall occupancies across definitely downtown and Pier Bowl, with Los Molinos and El Camino Real somewhat staying fairly regular, which these areas have a lot more residential and some light industrial areas, which are more of year-round, same characteristics and behavior. So now to provide a visual of what it looks like from a map standpoint, this is the study area map showing all 3 categories of public parking lots, on-street parking, and also private parking lots across all the different areas. We see downtown being one of the busiest areas with a lot of red, both in terms of parking lots and on-street parking as well. Now we go into the summer peak. Looks very similar, but we see even more of an increase of the color red, and not only in downtown but also in the Pier Bowl and the parking lots. And we see a bit more of yellow and orange, indicating an increase of over 50% capacity in the community, in the area of Los Molinos and El Camino Real as well. So now another important component of our parking analysis is not only the parking occupancy itself, but we also looked into, and it's very important to know, how long do people stay whenever they park. So we also looked at that information, and again, in a very similar fashion, we're comparing January versus July numbers by area. In downtown, we see very similar numbers, almost identical between January and July, and overall across the turnover data, downtown definitely has, over 50% in terms of the people that park for 2 hours of less. This indicates a healthy turnover. However, we also see, a fair share of people parking for, longer than 2 hours, longer than 4 hours, and also a big chunk, 22% during July, with vehicles observed to park for longer than 6 hours. North Beach, in the area of North Beach, we also see a very healthy turnover with vehicles parking, the majority of vehicles parking for 2 hours of less, and very similar to downtown actually in terms of the longer stays. So now going to the other areas, Los Molinos and El Camino Real, we also see healthy turnover. Majority of people parking for 2 hours of less. These two areas are different than, for example, downtown, with not as much of retail as downtown, although we do definitely see, especially along El Camino Real, a lot of similar retail and restaurant type of uses. And finally, Pier Bowl. As you can see so far, the majority across all the areas, we do see the majority of people park for 2 hours of less. The Pier Bowl, we do see more people probably parking for longer than 2 hours. For it could be obviously people going to the beach, but also people visiting, the restaurants and retail areas that are down in the Pier Bowl as well. That increase the stay. So finally, as I had, some of the insights, so peak demand exceeds, as I had mentioned, 85% occupancy in key areas, such as the Pier Bowl in downtown mainly. We do see some private lots that are, compared to, the public parking lots, could be considered underutilized. So this could open up, for potential opportunities to increase to increase the amount of parking spaces that could potentially be leased from, private lot agreements. We clearly see some of the seasonal variation in demand, and again, we see on-street congestion definitely near residential areas, which, by the way, is where we observe the majority of vehicles are parking there for longer than 6 hours, for example. So now I'd like to go into this slide where we discuss some of the different parking and TDM strategies, benchmarking or best practices that some different cities are doing. This is just a general high-level list of again, some of the strategies that they're either implementing or currently evaluating, or they're planned. The first ones, dynamic peak pricing or paid on-street parking, as you can see, are some of the main ones that many cities are implementing. Laguna Beach, Newport Beach, Huntington Beach, Oceanside, Carlsbad are cities that already have this type of measures or strategies. And residential parking permits, shared parking, and in lieu fees are some of the other ones that also the city and as part of our scope we're looking into and still considering. Out of all of the different strategies, these are some of the strategies that, based on the data we have seen, we have kind of like honed into and are considering, again, based on the data that we have seen, expansion of the trolley service, which can be both from adding an additional line, or it can also be from increasing the frequency of the trolley. Also, there could be some what we call clean mobility options, which are some of these electric vehicles that we see across different cities that can be used basically in the same fashion as the trolley. It could be as a complementary type of service to the trolley. and also paid parking, a comprehensive wayfinding program to help people find some of the identified underutilized parking lots that we see in different areas. We also have modification of time limit restrictions. There are many streets across the different focus areas that do not have time limit restrictions, which also lead to vehicles or people to park there for longer periods of time, which of course it's an issue because this creates less of a parking supply. And then finally, converting some standard parking spaces to be able to accommodate neighborhood electric vehicles or NEV parking spaces, given the dimensions and the popularity of NEV vehicles in the city, which can be also basically some of the golf carts that we see in the city. Based on the dimensions, you can accommodate a few more parking spaces than a standard parking space by doing a reconfiguration. So now onto some of the final slides. We're going into talking about some of the findings, some of the strategies, and some of the benefits. So some of the findings that I've alluded before, we are seeing some low on-street turnover at certain streets that do not have parking restrictions. We also see some parking availability at parking lots located on streets with low on-street turnover. And this could potentially be due, depending on the street, likely to employees from adjacent business park on street parking for longer than 2 hours. Some of the strategies to combat this could be paid parking or implementation of time limit restrictions. Some examples of where this could be implemented. This is not exclusive, but again, these are some of the streets that we have observed this. It's Avenida Cabrillo, Avenida Del Mar, and Avenida Granada in the downtown area. And some of the benefit that we could see is, of course, with implementation of paid parking or time limit restrictions, this encourages more frequent turnover, which allow for more people to access parking spaces throughout the day. Time limits discourage employees from occupying prime parking spaces all day. Instead, we would encourage directing longer term parking people to the appropriate parking lots that have public parking all day. Also, paid parking can help fund, for example, this incremental trolley and or other public improvements such as sidewalks, landscaping, beautification in areas where fees are collected. Another strategy to combat some of the findings that we've had is parking enforcement, which kind of goes hand in hand with the previous strategy that I mentioned about paid parking and time limit restrictions. Without parking enforcement, no matter how much you limit or if you implement time limit restrictions in the street, if there's no parking enforcement. So that's another strategy. And then of course, enforcement ensures that vehicles leave when their time is up, helping free up spaces. Also, visitors, tourists, employees know that there's active monitoring and risk a ticket, so they're more likely to or less likely to overstay. And also, throughout time, it'll encourage behavior change as it teaches drivers over time that certain areas, are for short-term parking only, and they shouldn't, abuse or take advantage of this restrictions. Another strategy that we're considering is just providing more public parking for vehicles, electric bikes, or NEVs. Again, NEVs are neighborhood electric vehicles. So if more bike racks are provided and are also easy to find, safe and visible, then this encourages people to bike more. And especially for short trips downtown, and this goes for bicycle, e-bikes, and also in the case of NEVs, if there are parking spaces that would be considered essentially exclusive for NEVs, it would encourage the use of of said vehicles. Also, the potential formation of a parking benefit district is being considered as one of the strategies, and what this would do is the revenue that is collected from, for example, parking meters or fines can be used specifically towards funding mobility and parking improvements. For example, increasing trolley frequencies, some of the strategies that I have mentioned before, but it would ensure that by creating a parking benefit district, that the fees that are collected are exclusively used in the area that would be considered the parking benefit district. What this would do is again, create essentially a specific fund for it instead of having to rely on, for example, the general fund. Also, expanding the trolley service, I touched, briefly on it, but it's basically, it could increase either the days of service, the frequency, or creating a new line. So this helps because if you either increase a line or the frequency, then people can actually, rely more on the trolley service with shorter headways. Or if you're providing, more service throughout the week, then people are more prone to utilize this service. And then also creating employee parking lots or off-site parking. When you implement time restrictions along with enforcement, again, they go hand in hand. This would, encourage drivers to park off-site at appropriate, parking lots. Doing so could potentially increase the parking occupancy at, for example, the San Clemente Outlets parking structure, which we identified during both the off-peak and peak season to have low occupancy. We observed a maximum of 40% occupancy during both weekdays and weekends. So again, this could be a potential opportunity to, if the trolley services increase, this could help more people utilize the service and go and park in this area. So finally, some of the staff recommendations that we have discussed, and these are essentially ranked 1 through 6, and this is the order of preference. Would be starting with parking enforcement. Some of the possible challenges, as you can see, could be the cost of hiring and training additional parking enforcement staff. The second would be, again, the implementation of paid parking and parking time limit restrictions. Also, some of the possible challenges, as we have seen, in different areas, and also based on the feedback that we have also received based on surveys, there could be some potential public pushback and businesses fearing loss of convenience. So there is risk of displacing drivers who park long-term into nearby neighborhoods or experiencing some spillback into residential neighborhoods. So number 3, it would be, again, the expanding the trolley service. Some of the challenges could be, securing funding or the increased operation expenses. However, there are, some avenues that, the city is very well aware of and has been pursued and has been great at pursuing some of the grant funding provided by OCTA. Number 4 would be providing more public parking for bicycle, e-bikes, and NEVs. Some of the challenges could be, finding the space or making space for bike racks near sidewalks without reducing pedestrian flow. Also, in the same manner for e-bikes and NEVs, it would be the challenge would be not removing or finding a balance because obviously finding or be able to restripe parking for some of the spaces would mean reducing a standard vehicle parking spaces. So that is, some of the challenges that we face. Number 5, again, the potential formation for a public benefit district. While it is effective, and we have seen very successful cases of public benefit districts in different cities or nearby cities. It is rather a complex decision, or in terms of setting it up. Also, it could come with some legal and administrative costs. And also, finally, we have employee parking lots for offsite parking. Some of the challenges that come with this could be the perception of that trolley or walking is inconvenient, and also we could face some enforcement challenges. And also, what you can see in the screen, the last two columns are just on a scale of 1 through 5, both essentially a ranking of the ease of implementation and some of the range of costs. And with this, I'll be happy to take any questions, comments. So some of the next steps at the moment, we're planning on coming again before you for a recommendation on the parking and transportation demand plan next month, and also going to City Council in December. So happy to answer any questions.
I'm going to give about a minute of context, if it's okay, and then hopefully we have time for
Go ahead,
questions.
Zach.
So this slide is appropriate. We are planning to return to the Planning Commission with some more formal recommendations, and also CRA is working on a pro forma where they're going to estimate approximately what some of these strategies might cost and the kind of revenue that we might expect to bring in, looking at other cities and how they've rolled out some of these programs. The other thing we're going to look at is maybe doing some of these over time, not implementing all 6 of these strategies at once. The last slide was the staff recommendation. We do think enforcement is the most important thing we can do, and we think time limits / paid parking is the second most important thing. But ideally, we'd like to consider all 6 of those options and even some of the other options on that really big matrix that other cities are doing. So if you have comments on either the big matrix and things that you think are the highest priorities, or if you think that we should be digging deeper into some of these topics, or we missed some pros and cons in our basic charts, we'll look into that over the next month or two. This is also Coastal Commission funded project, so we have to have a full plan, menu of options. We don't have to implement this all at once at any one time. We just have to finalize the document, include it in our plan, and then it'll come back for Planning Commission and City Council determinations over probably the next 10 years if you want to implement any of these ideas.
Well, I bet there's quite a bit of feedback, so let's get into that. Can you just roll back a slide and let's leave it there? And then I want to turn it over to the commission for their comments. Anyone want to jump into this?
I'll start. Do we have any data on what the Pier Bowl parking generates?
Are
On an annual basis? Where you have to pay for the parking down at the pier?
Oh, you're,
Revenue.
yeah, in terms of revenue. We don't have the data yet specifically divided by, by area, which, the Pier Bowl is one of the few areas where there is paid parking. But that is something that we're looking into, and it will be part of the pro forma.
At the current time, does it go to the general fund?
Yes, yes, it goes to the general fund, correct.
Okay, and is there any reason why a parking structure isn't mentioned here? I know it would be a high expense way, but, we've been talking about parking for a long time, and until we put in some capital improvement somewhere around Del Mar, because like my wife or anybody who lives in town, they're not gonna park and ride the trolley, and it takes too long. That's gonna add so much time to their, that's something to think about maybe for the summertime, but, we own the properties, I think, around the library. Other cities have like double-decked or gone subterranean and up one story to where you'd have 3 levels of parking. I can think of like Santa Barbara, where they've done some subterranean and above ground to where it looks like it's only 2 levels, but it's actually 3. And if you had a parking district, then you could maybe pay off some kind of capital, improvement. Because I think most of our solutions that really would solve the problem, besides having a parking district and maybe charging, although that would take some time, but I think it would limit the long time that people park, is going to be somewhere that's relatively close, that the city makes the capital investment to make it walkable for somebody to park somewhere and then walk to the Del Mar store, plus getting rid of people that park too long. So I know I'll probably be dead by the time it would ever come around, but that's really the only thing that I've seen, and I've been here almost 10 years, that's gonna solve that problem, and we have the piece of property to do it around the library.
Did you want a response on that one?
That's
We
it.
did look into that.
I mean, I think that's an important thing to at least look at, even though if they say, well, that's way too expensive, but I don't know what a parking benefit district would generate along with like the Pier Bowl to do the capital improvement and then pay itself back because we take bonds out. I think we really have to start looking at, because all these other things are just Band-Aids. That's it.
What I'd like to do, Zach, is give, because we're at 10 till, everybody a chance to comment. I'm going to take notes, you take notes. I don't think you should respond. I think you should take it down. And I hope you could look at these things, so when you come back in November, you respond then in your presentation. Okay, we heard this, boom. Is that cool? Okay, so Karen, did you want to, Jerry, you done?
I'm done.
Okay, Karen?
One of them was already put out. The next would be the businesses on Del Mar. On the graph there, it showed that there was a significant number that stayed longer than 3, 4, 6 hours. So have we reached out to the businesses as far as their employees, where they're parking? Is that in any graph anywhere, that data?
Yeah, so we conducted a business owner survey specifically where we did ask where do their employees park, if they provide any direction from the employer to their employees in terms of like where to park. So we have that data. It's not in this presentation, but we have received feedback. We like I said, we prepared 2 different surveys, one for residents and then another one for business owners specific.
And are we including parking spaces that are now parklets? Or is that the parking spaces are just parking spaces?
Parking space, yeah, only parking spaces.
Okay, that's it, thank you.
Hey, who wants? Brett, okay.
So out of the 3,892 spots available, according to what you were saying, how many of those are visible via camera?
All of them except some of the private parking spaces.
Okay. Because, I mean, I like to keep things simple. Building a garage would obviously change the character of the town. If we had the ability to add a couple cameras that we don't have, implement some type of AI that it wasn't even brought up here, that might be something that we could utilize. Every time you go to the big parking structures, you drive in and you can see exactly how many spots are available per level. Just an idea.
I see.
And you can gauge, am I going to go to the second story, third story, whatever. And then once you get in there, obviously they've got the little green or red lights. Something else that, would be neat, but with AI, you could have an application or an app on your phone, say, okay, there's 32 spots on Del Mar, I can go right now. Just an idea.
I see.
That's
Okay.
Scott, you good? Okay. Just for sake of time, I'm just going to make some things for you guys to consider in the next report. So I would like to see you call out private lots, either city, that the city could release or rent or purchase as a category of expanding parking. So maybe along with Gary said, if we had a new category of expanding the amount of spots, parking structures one way, using private lots, renting them, leasing them, whatever, that's another way. So I think we need a new category to expand the amount of parking. And in that category, removing the parklets should be included as a discussion. The next thing is, for me, these neighborhood electric vehicles, why that is a benefit for parking is not clear to me. To me, we have quite a number of them in town, and when they're in a parking spot, they're taking the full spot. So it's a car. To me, there's no difference. May be electric, but it's still taking a spot. So encouraging it is just, to me, not expanding, or it doesn't do anything. So I'm not sure why that's such a focus. The bikes, sure. The thing with the bikes that I think you should consider is, I think parking is one of the easiest things for a bike in town. The bigger challenge in San Clemente is we were built 100 years ago. The streets are narrow, and riding a bike can be unsafe in this town. There's no bike lanes in the area of the study area here. And, when you go to the other side of the freeway, yes, there are, but down here, no bike lanes. We have one coastal biking corridor that we kind of encourage bikes to go on, where you share the road. It's got the little Sharrow symbol, or whatever that biking symbol is on the road, which isn't even really highlighted very well. It's not green. I think that's the bigger challenge. If we want to invite or encourage more biking, we've got to consider how that would work. The other thing that we do, I think Karen mentioned this, I think if we look at those statistics of 20% are 6 hours and more, those are either overflow residential parking or it's employees. My guess it's employees. When we held a public hearing here on the Hanson, I think it's the hotel on Del Mar, the neighborhood complained pretty consistently that they can't park on their street because the employees at all the restaurants are taking their spots. That's something that should be bumped up in the discussion about that. And to the point where I think we should be suggesting some kind of policy that we outreach to businesses and we tell them specifically, your employees may not park in these areas, period. They need to park further away and walk, so they need to get here early. I'm making something up. I'm not saying that should be your answer, but just to give you an example, I just think we need to put more emphasis on the employee parking, because they're parking for free in our highly desired parking spots. And to me, clearing that up immediately opens up more parking. So I would like to see more conversation about that. Did you want to chime in on that, Karen?
Permit parking for residents, you were talking about the streets.
Yeah, that would be another option too for the street parking, would be to require permits, so that
At least they would have parking.
that way, if an employee is parking there, enforcement could go there 24/7. Oh, you don't have an employee, you don't have a neighborhood parking permit for Granada? Okay, you're getting a ticket. Something to that nature. Whatever. I think you should look at that more. Street improvements to, again, increase parking, that should be, I don't know what we could do there, but there might be, if we look at opportunities to change some of the configurations, and could that net more spots? The other thing would be the parking rates that we're charging in primarily the Pier Bowl, that parking lot, especially perhaps in the summer. If we bump that up, would that create, what kind of revenue scenarios could we look at? So we could have a seasonal rate, so that in the more peak times, we could increase it, and I think it would be useful if you had a model around showing the finances. Here's how much we're generating, here's what you would see if you upped in the seasonal rate, say, 25%. And what that would enable you to do. And I feel like what you ought to do is, I think Gary was trying to get at this, and I think you're trying to get at it as well with these PBDs, the parking benefit districts, is that monies would be directed into a fund that would be go towards these kinds of improvements. So I think showing a model of what we could do there would be helpful to make it more actionable. The other thing that I didn't see here is just restrictions on certain kinds of parking, like on Del Mar, like no overnight parking, so that you don't have residents who are, or something to that effect, maybe park, I don't know. Just maybe there's, or maybe there's a zone where you could say, hey, you can park here till 6 a.m. and after 6 a.m. it's back to, we're going to 2 hours, something like that. The trolley, I think, is great. It's a great asset, and one of the things that we need to figure out is behaviors for locals to use it. My personal observation is it's for visitors that are, that don't know how to navigate our parking, and it's just easier to park at the outlet mall and just jump on the trolley and get the narrated tour and, you know. But I think the challenge is, what could we do to make it more enticing for locals to use it? And I have no, I don't even have any ideas, but I think that's the challenge that we should talk about. And potentially, we could use some technology there where we could have a trolley app with GPSs on it that a local could download, and they could see, where's the trolley? Oh yeah, you know what? It's nearby. I could just hop on this thing. Because if you're not into the trolley, you're like, well, when does it come? Where do I go? So we don't make, I think we could make it easier for locals, is my point about that. Okay, those are just ideas. It would be nice if we could expand the conversation to those, include those things in addition to what you have. Is that cool?
Those are good ideas. Yeah, we've thought about probably 90% of those, and we didn't want to make this presentation in an hour and a half.
Exactly.
But we'll come back with a written report that gets at some of those ideas too.
I think it would be, let me poll my colleagues for a minute. This is a hot button in our community. What's the appetite for us to really contribute to the building of this report and review it maybe in advance? Talk maybe a pre-meeting, you know, if we did two with staff to go over and let's say for an hour, it's a pre-meeting, and then each person could expand on it, and then when we get to the meeting, it's a little bit more condensed. Is there an appetite for that, or are we just comfortable with it coming back and kind of repeating what we just did here? I'm just trying to gauge how much engagement the commission wants to have.
Well, I think that people could individually do that if they wanted to.
Got it.
I mean, they could reach out to Zach or whoever the, you know.
Does that work for everybody? If you feel, if you feel inclined to maybe get a pre-brief and give your input before the meeting so they could refine it, you just would reach out? Is that
It's going
work?
to come back next time, right? If we don't like it, we still can continue it to another.
Well, it looked like you guys are trying to get it to the council the next month, right?
We're trying to come back to the planning commission at least once more. We'd be understanding if it takes 2 more meetings. And
Okay.
then city council, ideally in December, but it could be in January.
Because my only comment, along with Cameron's, is previous city where I lived had what they call Downey Link. And it had, you know, the city was divided into 4 quadrants, and you had buses that would, you know, make 4 like Clover systems, and it would hit all the commercial spots that the ladies would want to go, and it was sort of walkable, or you could ride your bike to it. And then you would ride essentially, I think it's free, because they got either some kind of transportation money to do it. They've had it for about the last 20 years. So as long as we're going to think about, you know, capital deals or grants, I don't know if this city would qualify, but having, besides the trolley, which is the one point, and I agree, it's more of like a tourist or somebody from out of town who doesn't want to hassle going down, and they know they're going to go to downtown. But like for people in my family or stuff, if they had a spot where they could walk to like a trolley that went more than just to the, you know, spot, I would think a lot of people would take it, because my wife always complains about trying to find places to park downtown. But what, you know, I don't know what Downey did to get their system that they've had now for 20 years. It's paid by the federal government.
Yeah.
They have that plus a senior citizen system. So.
Let's do this, if you don't mind, Zach, maybe
throw that
just
in the discussion.
when you have a draft that you think is pulled together enough, maybe just send it out to us ahead of time instead of waiting for the Friday release. That way, if it's a week or two, and then if any one of us read it and we want to just call and have a phone conversation or a meeting to just do deep dives, so we're not doing the deep dive from the dais, that's an opportunity for people to do it. Would that be a fair ask for you?
Yeah, that's a good idea. We'll provide more than a week of notice on the written work.
Yeah, because I think most people in the general public don't understand. We get the report just a few days before the meeting. And then, if we had it a week or so, we could, yeah.
Is a draft sent to us and then with responses back to you sequentially cause a problem? The city attorney?
Usually when I send out documents to the planning commission, I ask you to respond to just me, not to reply all.
Yeah, that's right.
And as long as you don't talk to any of us about what other,
Yeah, as long as you guys aren't all talking together, that's totally fine to send comments back to staff.
Yeah, or separate, or just individual, just if you want to, hey, I think I'd like to just talk to you, can I set up a half an hour meeting? And then you could do that.
so because it's a draft, the public doesn't have to have their chance to throw in because they'll get it at,
Correct, yes.
Yeah, it's just an opportunity to do a deep dive prior to the meeting.
okay, just want to make sure.
Can I chime in on that?
Yeah, please, yeah.
Just real quick, I just want to comment on, and all the ideas that all of my fellow commissioners had were great. One thing that Cameron mentioned was maybe like neighborhood permit parking like Granada and Cabrillo or something, and I just think I would be opposed to that or something we should think about because that is kind of the overflow for Del Mar, right? So maybe if it was paid paid metered parking on those streets, but then if you're a neighbor and you got a sticker, then it's not. So that would discourage, long time parking on those streets by non-residents, but they would still be available. I mean, the businesses on Del Mar need a certain, they're, if,
Just
need
so,
parking,
yeah.
so.
Yeah, permit,
So just
or
something to think about.
Yeah, I wasn't trying to give an answer, just,
just something where the
open it up.
residents can park, and then there wouldn't be that long-term parking from employees.
it's just in search of having a way to discourage employees from,
Yeah, and identify who's actually parking there.
anything else on this? I want to wrap up our study session. Jonathan, is that good? Wrap up? Good? Good? Okay. Jonathan, thank you for organizing your presentation, making a good, getting through a lot of material in an hour.
Yeah.
I think you did a great job.
Thank you.
I look forward to seeing you again in November. So thank you. Thank you for a great work and a great report.
Likewise, thank you, Commissioner Cameron and the rest of the planning commissioners. Thank you.
All right. Let's see here. Yeah. So for this, do I need to move adjournment, do I not? Do I need to do a formal adjournment of the study
You
session?
do, yes.
So I will go ahead and move that we adjourn this study session to the next regular study session that is currently scheduled for Wednesday, October 22nd, 2025, 5 PM here at the San Clemente City Hall, Council Chambers.
Which says it's canceled.
Is it canceled?
Yeah, but we can still schedule to that.
Yeah, and then the said staff can do a cancellation notice publicly. So
Yeah, we'll post a cancellation
do you
notice.
second that, Gary?
Second.
Second, and then we lost our quorum, so we'll just take a vote in a minute. Okay.
So are we in 5-minute recess?
Yeah, we'll just take a minute break. Yeah, so if you need to take a break, let's take a break, and then we just need to come back and adjourn.
How come we don't see the
Folks, I made a motion, if we could just get your attention, I made a motion, Gary seconded it to adjourn. Can I just get a quick vote? All those in favor of adjourning? Aye. Okay, study session is adjourned. I will now call to order our regular meeting of the Planning Commission for the City of San Clemente on October 8th, 2025. It's 6:11 PM. We're meeting in the council chambers. For attendance, we have two commissioners missing. We are missing Vice Chair Steve Camp and Commissioner Patrick Griffin. All other commissioners are present. Do we have any volunteers in the audience that want to lead us in the pledge? Someone want to lead us in the pledge from the audience? Anyone? Go ahead, be brave. Okay, Commissioner McCann is going to lead us in the pledge.
Ready, begin.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, thank you, everybody. We have no special presentations tonight. We do have minutes from our meeting of September 17 to approve. Any comments or changes to those minutes? Hearing none, a motion? for
Make a motion to approve.
Second, okay. All those in favor of approving the minutes, say aye. Okay. Aye, it passes unanimously. Thank you. Item 6 on the agenda is oral or communications from any member of the audience that would like to speak on a non-agenda item. Do we have any member of the public that wants to speak to the Planning Commission? Seeing none, hearing none, we could move on to item 7, consent calendar. We have no items tonight. Item 8 is public hearings, and we do have 4 public hearings on our agenda tonight. The first one is a public hearing, project 25-301, which is a conditional use permit number 25-310. And this is a small collection recycling facility at the Target site, which is 990 Avenida Vista Hermosa. And this is a request of the Planning Commission to approve a conditional use permit that would operate a small collection recycling facility in the parking lot of Target, and also a CEQA determination. And the staff report is provided by Jessica Gatney. Jessica, welcome. You've got the floor.
Chair, I'm sorry. Before we start, can we do disclosures,
Yeah,
please?
thank you. So first of all, we are in public hearing mode. Do we have any communications with the applicant that were outside of this, on this matter? Okay. I'm going to open,
Been to Target.
you've been to Target. Awesome. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and open the public hearing. The process that we're going to go through for all public hearings tonight is we're going to go to the staff report, so Jessica will be doing that. If there's questions, we will take some, but then we're going to go to the applicant. They'll have 10 minutes. If there's any member of the public that wants to speak to this item, we'd love to hear from them as well. They'll have 3 minutes, and then the applicant will have 3 more minutes to respond if they wish. And then we'll have our discussion. So, okay, now you can go.
Good evening, Commissioners. As Cameron said, the applicant requests the conditional use permit to operate a small collection recycling facility. The facility is proposed at the Target parking lot. The property is zoned neighborhood commercial 1.2 and in the Forester Ranch specific plan, Sector P. The surrounding land uses include vacant land to the northwest and directly east, zoned open space. The uses to the south include a fire station and Vista Hermosa Sports Park. The nearest residential development is located within the Talega community, more than 800 feet east of the project site. The facility is proposed to be located north of and approximately 70 feet behind the existing Target storefront. The facility will consist of 2 portable metallic containers fronted by a metallic storefront structure with 2 operable doors on the front elevation. The rear of the storefront will remain open to the back side to partially allow the 2 storage containers to overlap. The rear of the facility has operable doors to enclose the storage area from public view, and the facility itself will utilize 3 parking spaces. Large potted plants will be placed in front of the storefront to define and protect the waiting area for the customers in queue. The facility also proposes to reserve 5 parking spaces for recycling customers and will utilize temporary signage to direct customers to the facility during operating hours. The entire project uses a total of 10 parking spots. The facility will be attended during operating hours, which are proposed as Tuesday to Saturday, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m., closed on Sundays and Mondays. Customers will load bottles and cans into oversized bins, and the attendant will receive and weigh the materials. 1 storage container will be dedicated for plastics and aluminum cans, and the second will be used for glass, which requires less frequent servicing. The containers will be replaced on an as-needed basis from the rear of the facility. Supplemental bins will be provided to drain excess liquid and manage waste. A condition of approval outlines that all city and state water quality and discharge requirements be met, including prohibition of wash water entering the store and drain system. Employees shall keep the site area clean, utilizing non-water methods such as hand brooming and street sweeping. Any use of water shall not enter the storm drain and shall be disposed in a legal manner to the public sewer system. In 2019, the original lot was subdivided into 2 separate parcels. As part of this subdivision, a shared parking study was prepared, which identified that the target parcel has a peak demand surplus of 74 parking spaces. The proposed recycling facility will utilize 10 of these spaces, resulting in a surplus of 64 parking spaces available during peak demand hours. Staff supports approval of this project as a small collection recycling facility is conditionally permitted in the zone, meets development standards, and is consistent with the general plan. The use will not negatively impact the surrounding land uses, nor be detrimental to public health, safety, or welfare, nor materially injurious to properties or improvements in the vicinity. Thank you, and please let me know if you have any questions.
Great. Any quick questions before we hear from the applicant? From anybody?
I have a question just on the sign. It kind of leads me to believe that at any time of the day, if I drove up, it said it's now open. You know, so, and it's only open during certain hours, right? And not every day. So is that, it's just a little confusing because now open might mean to somebody it's open right now when you're driving the parking lot versus just announcing that, like a general announcement, there is a recycling center, but you really won't find out what the hours are until you drive to the little, right, until you drive around the corner.
To the facility. The wayfinding signage that's in the bottom corner right here that says now open is
Yeah.
actually temporary. It's an A-frame that will be removed
Oh.
when the service is not operating.
Okay. Thanks.
Is this a cash business?
There
It's a
there
pay-
is in the, in one of the attachments is the operating, let's see, their business plan, which outlines something about the cash register. So yes, they do have some more information in attachment 5 about that, and I can go into further detail about it if you'd like. Yeah, sure. So no more than 250 will be kept in the cash register, And they will have different means to hide the remaining catch, which is brought to them on a daily basis, and precautions are taken to make the transaction discreet to avoid potential robberies. It also says the system has worked and no robberies have taken place with such an approach for cash handling.
And there's also cameras, right?
There will also be 2 security cameras at the site. One will monitor each transition with the customers, and the other will monitor the surrounding property. Yes. Thank you.
Is this a for-profit business or like a state mandated thing, or?
You know, I believe it's a for-profit, but, yeah, I don't know. That would be something I'd have to follow up with the applicant.
Okay, thank you.
Jessica, I wanted to just zoom out for a minute. Can you just talk about siting of this use? We have the backside of this parking lot, you could kind of argue. It's not really in prime space, but it is really close to the store. But then on the very west end, I guess, is that a separate lot? Is that the thing? Because I'm just curious why, I mean, that's vacant. It's underutilized. Can you just talk about why it was cited there instead of, say, on the west end?
Well, that is a separate parcel, which can kind of be seen on this
Yes,
slide.
yes, uh-huh.
And there are waiting for a future development proposal for the site.
So in staff's opinion, it was better to not put it there? Or did they not ask the owner for permission?
That's just not how the application came in.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay, well, maybe the applicant can speak to that if they wish. Okay. I do see in conditions, the condition of approval around, and you did speak to it, but it's 7.17, operations and maintenance shall meet all city water quality discharge requirements, which are important, of course, but these centers can be messy. Can you speak a little bit about how we're going to keep this from becoming an eyesore and littered and all the rest? Can you just speak to how it's going to be maintained?
Compliance.
Well, in the business plan, they did outline, sometimes customers will bring boxes, cardboard boxes full of the returnables, and they can break those down and recycle those. Sometimes there's also bags, which they'll have trash area to collect those. They don't expect that to be a large quantity. And then they'll have some buckets to get rid of the excess waste, liquid waste out of the.
Okay, well,
Some
I
bottles.
will ask the applicant if they can explain their standard operating procedures about that then. But staff is satisfied that this operation will, with these conditions of approval, are adequate to keep it working in good, not just good working order, but litter and just liquid waste that is inevitable with this kind of a use will be attended to and kept clean, more or less. Staff is confident in that?
We do believe condition 7.17 does take care of that
Okay.
issue.
Okay. I'm going to invite the applicant up unless someone else has anything else.
I do have to say the applicant at the last minute told me he could not make it. He had a last minute emergency that came up.
Not here.
He's not here.
Okay. All right.
If questions for staff are still open, I could add a little bit more context on
Yeah.
the cleanliness
The
question.
applicants say it's fine to go ahead.
Yeah.
Yeah, I believe they wanted to move forward with
Yeah,
the
they didn't
hearing.
want to.
Okay.
They didn't want to
All
postpone.
right, okay, make sure.
Just on the cleanliness, so staff has what's called the development management team, where it's not just planning staff, but we talked with code staff and we talked with our environmental program staff, that condition you're reading is fairly standard and not the most specific, but our code staff felt that it was enforceable, and our environmental programs staff felt that if there were any problems, they could address that with the applicant using the condition language as it's written.
Yeah, that's my really only question or area of focus is the operations and ensuring it doesn't become an eyesore, it doesn't become a litter magnet, and the things associated with, recycling that, where that can be a side effect. All right. So what does the staff recommend? Just move to public comments at this time then? Okay. Do we have any member from the public that wants to speak to this item? It's a public hearing. Anyone's welcome to speak on it. I don't have any speaker cards, but anyone from the audience want to speak to this? Okay, seeing none. Do we have any other questions of staff before I close the public hearing? We ready to have our conversation? I'm going to go ahead and close the public hearing. Thank you, Jessica. Stand by just in case.
Thank you.
I'll open it up for discussion now of this application. Okay, Commissioner McCacken, lead us off. Thanks.
I'm in favor. It's out of sight, sort of on the side. I take my stuff out of town. I'm a recycler. And where I take it, over like in Mission Viejo, it's not really a problem because it's like this, it's self-contained. And plus they don't take newspaper. And you learn pretty fast that they check your plastic bottles, and if you have any water or liquid in it, because that adds weight, they're not gonna take your bottles. So the pour out kind of thing is, most of the people who come know sort of the deal, that it needs to be dry. So paper's not a problem. And my place has a place where if you do have like your plastic bags or stuff that you have in it, that you can throw it in his trash can or you can take it home. So I don't think that's an
Can I
issue.
ask you a question? Do they have a place, let's say that you don't know that you should have your soda cans or whatever beverage can that you're returning, or glass container or plastic container empty? Do they have a place that you could put it?
Yeah.
They
You
do?
dump it in your, yeah, but nobody really does that because people have hundreds of cans. It's not
Got
like
it.
somebody shows up with one can and wants to pour their drink out and.
Yeah, okay.
Because it's not worth it to turn.
But they
it
do
into
have a
one can.
receptacle for
Yeah.
it, specifically to pour it into?
Yeah.
Okay. Does the applicant have, I'm going to open the public hearing again to discuss, does the applicant have that kind of a container here?
That was outlined in their business plan.
It is, and they do have that?
Yes.
Okay, good.
And I think that's it, since they're self-contained, when it's unoccupied, it'll be locked up. Things won't be able to blow anywhere. And generally, I mean, the most important stuff is, really, there's not too much glass anymore. That's low. It's the plastic that's almost as expensive now to get a refund from, even though aluminum cans like a year ago were a lot more, you got a better return. So I'd say it's gonna be mostly just plastic and aluminum. And it's all self-contained. They'll just throw it in the,
Okay.
so I'm in favor of this project.
Okay. Karen, thoughts?
I'm kind of lukewarm. I have some reservations. I'm not against recycling. I'm just wondering if it needs to be there and somewhere else where it's, I don't know, why was this site picked, I guess is my question. Of all the areas in their city, what was the attraction to this site? Other than, was the target that said, yeah, we'll allow it, or how does that work? Question for staff.
There's another recycling facility in the city, and it's on the other side of the city.
Other
So
side.
that may have had something to do with why they selected this site.
And with that begs the question, has there been any issues with the other?
Not that I'm aware of, yeah.
I mean, you're not aware of it, but that doesn't mean that there hasn't been. How do we exactly find out about that?
I could do some more research, I suppose.
Well, I'm just trying to ferret it out for this evening. Is there hasn't been any complaints, and it's been clean, no problems? Is it the same company?
It's not the same company.
Okay, different company.
Yeah.
The other thing I was gonna say is there used to be one at what's now Pavilions, right where you drive over the pharmacy. But that went out of business when China decided this is probably about 3 years ago, when China decided they weren't gonna take any recyclables, aluminum, plastic, nothing from the United States. And that didn't seem to, that had a problem either. And at the place where I go, most of it is, a lot of it's women. And this is a place where women just love to, it's like they drop off their recyclables and it's out of the way. And I bet you that's another reason why unless the other reason was that because there is nothing on this side of town in San Clemente to take your recyclables if you want to.
Again, I'm not opposed to it.
Yeah.
I'm just not familiar with how the waste, the cleanup, the litter, I suppose that the customers of Target would complain, and Target would be making a phone call. So basically, how often does the city go by there, or how does the compliance work for checking up on it?
Well, we're complaint-driven in the city, so if we got a complaint, they would go investigate it
Okay.
and see if, there's merit to it.
I could go either way. If
Okay,
we
let's
wanna-
hear
wanna move
from
it forward.
everyone else. Brett, did you want to share your thoughts?
So it seems like it's already there in the location. It seems like we're kind of going backwards in this whole process. When I saw it on the agenda, I thought, why are we even talking about it? It seems like it's already done. But for that, I'm a little disappointed that we're just finding out about it, on Friday. I'm kind of like with Karen on this. I'm lukewarm at best. Mostly because of the location. I know there's a lot of kids with e-bikes that go in and out of that area. I'm glad that there's cameras and security. Is it a nuisance? I don't know. With only $250 in the cash drawer, maybe more. Could it be a target? Could it create other issues? I'm not sure. But right now, I'm not super excited about it. That's where I'm at.
Okay, Scott?
Well, I guess I'm hearing a couple of my fellow commissioners not being particularly excited about it, and I guess I'm wondering, in what context would we, if they didn't like it hypothetically, would we be able to say we don't like it, or we would just have to put more conditions on it? Are we, if it's allowed by right, which I think is what we heard, the use is allowed in that zone
Conditionally.
conditionally. So we would have the ability to put more conditions on it to the point where we did like it? Is that where we would have to go with it?
If somebody had something they want to suggest, but absent that, we'll have to just decide if we're going to move forward or not.
Okay. I don't have a problem with it. I think that Target will police it. If it's in Target's, not their front yard, but pretty darn close, and it's got to be on a lease of their property. So if it's not operating smoothly, they're going to be all over their tenant to deal with it. So I don't have a problem. That being said, if I'm open to other additional conditions or continuance, if we want the applicant here to answer some of the questions or whatever, I'm fine with that too.
Okay, cool. Did I catch this, that this is already built? It's already there?
It is there. When I went to go do my public postings
Yeah.
weeks ago, it
Did
was
they
already
jump the
there.
gun, or?
And I asked them why, and I told them they need to see separations. They said that they had not been doing operations, but it did look like they were, but
Zach, what's your thoughts here?
we became aware of it, I guess, when Jessica did her.
Not a big
her
deal?
Posting.
Or is it a big deal?
This happens with conditional use permits where people are anxious to start their business and then they find out just as they're ready to launch the business that they need a permit and then they ask us to rush the permit and we make the findings. The findings are the same. There's not
Okay.
a different finding because they jumped the gun.
Just maybe it's just ignorance of what's required. Okay. Do we have the ability to revoke this permit if we find that it's just not well managed?
It's on the conditions. That could be a condition we would want to add, yeah.
That's why it's conditional use permit.
Yeah, I think we could probably all get to a yes if we had the teeth to hold them accountable for keeping the operations in compliance with our litter and standards and the other standards of conditions of approval in here. Zach, can you maybe guide us on how we could add that condition tonight?
I think I'd ask for a minute to consult with the city attorney, but we have conditions that say that conditional use permits may be revoked if the city observes
Yeah.
certain circumstances.
Would it be appropriate if we, since the applicant's not here, there's no urgency on this, I don't want to continue it, but city attorney, what, if I just wanted to keep the public hearing, I reopened it, just keep it open, can we just park this for a minute and then we can move on to the next agenda item and then come back? Or do we need to actually pause the meeting and let you guys think about
Doesn't
it?
1.4, the CUP is subject to the San Clemente Municipal Code. So if there's any violation due to litter, which is already in the municipal code, or general upkeep of your business, that's a grounds for revocation. And also there's the one that talks about with the water. That's another, you're worried about water. It's subject to the discharge. So I think it has all the teeth. It has the full municipal code attached to it.
I'd like to have the assistant city attorney speak to that.
So there are some provisions in our municipal code, as Commissioner McCocken is saying. For instance, I'm sorry, I don't know which section I'm in because I'm reading on my computer, but it says the city may make changes or revoke the approval of applications when conditions of approval are violated. It is necessary to resolve a nuisance and/or when the application contained incorrect, false, or misleading information. To your point about Zach and I trying to come up with additional conditions of approval while the meeting is continuing, I would be a little worried about that because I would not want to continue without me paying attention to the rest of the meeting as well as Zach. So I think your options at this point are we can pause and Zach and I can put our heads together and make some proposed conditions of approval. I can, maybe look up some more information from the municipal code, or we can continue the hearing to a later date and we can get some additional information and perhaps the applicant could also attend.
I think staff would suggest you continue, and we'll look into condition 7.17 more, add a few metrics to it. We'll look into the other facility in town and see how they've been doing, if they have any code violations.
How do we feel about that?
Fine.
I'm fine with that. I think if the applicant was here, we would have a little more input.
Yeah. I think we need to all be unified on that, so are you okay with that?
I move we continue this item
Second.
to.
Moved and seconded to continue this. Zach, when do you want to continue to? How do we want to phrase that motion?
The applicant is in.
I can't speak for when the applicant's available. I would hope they'd be available at the next meeting in November, which should be, do we have the date of the November meeting?
So, okay,
We don't want to continue it to the next one in October because that meeting may not happen.
okay. So your motion then would be to continue.
November 5th.
Great. Second's good with that?
Second.
Okay.
Chair, can I pause just one second? The public hearing is still open, correct?
Yes, it is.
Perfect.
I reopened it to engage the staff.
Perfect.
I did not close it, so we'll keep it open. We've got a motion on the floor to continue to the November 5th meeting, seconded by Commissioner McCacken. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, it's continued. Thank you, everybody, for working through that, and staff, thank you for your willingness to work with us on that and hearing our concerns.
Thank you.
Are we ready to move on? Okay, item 8B is our next public hearing, and this is a, public hearing for a master sign program. It's a request to install 2 new signs on the Valencia building, the implementation of a new master sign program, and to exceed the 25 square foot signage for a business within the architectural overlay. So it's PHP 25-288, DSP 25-313. We're also going to consider the CEQA status for this project. And it's the Valencia building, for those that do not know, is located at 1502 South El Camino Real, which is in a neighborhood commercial 2 zone and an architectural overlay. So with that, I'm going to ask my colleagues for any disclosures, or was there any communication with the applicant outside of this hearing? None? All right, I'm going to go ahead and open the public hearing.
The DRC.
Yeah, I think the DRC is a public meeting, so we don't need to disclose that. But they did come before the DSC, so Commissioner McCann and I are familiar with this project. Were you there too? Okay, great. So Brett was there too. So I've opened a public hearing. Zach, are you taking this one? All right, so Zach's going to do the staff report.
Thank you, Chair Cosgrove. Zach Ream, Principal Planner. I'm subbing in for Araceli, whose name is on the slide, but I worked on the staff report too. So as noted, the project is at 1502 El Camino Real South. This is showing the general zoning of the site. Just for background, I don't know if this is on the next slide, but the Planning Commission and the Design Review Subcommittee reviewed the building itself almost a year ago at this point and approved the building's design. So this permit is only for the signage, which was not included in the original approval. Anyway, here we are showing the zoning. It's at the intersection of El Camino Real and Avenida Valencia. It's zone neighborhood commercial, and it is within the A overlay, which is why they needed the design review for the building and then also for the signage. The project description is the addition of 2 new signs, although the 2 may turn into 3 based on the direction that was provided at DRSC, and then establishment of a master sign program for the building, which includes multiple tenants. So here's the locations of the proposed signs. There's 2 on the El Camino Real frontage. There's 1 on the Avenida Valencia frontage. And then, as has been discussed with staff, the applicant, and DRSC, there's been the idea for a blade sign kind of right on the corner here that would be visible from both streets. Again, the El Camino Real elevation features 2 tenants. There's currently a Pilates studio in operation at one of them, and then the other one, the building's been designed for a restaurant tenant, which was the impetus for this sign program, to get the restaurant tenant signage up. Here's a rendering of the restaurant signage, and I think this is showing both the sign on the Valencia side as well as the proposed blade signage, which should be on the corner and visible from both sides. Here is a chart provided by the tenant that shows the size of each of the 3 signs. I guess there's 1 larger one and 2 smaller ones, wall-mounted, and a letter sign, and then another letter sign. This was the analysis in the staff report that shows that the signage meets the city code and would have been allowed by right, except for they're asking for more than 25 square feet of total area. It looks like 86.4 square feet of total area, which exceeds the 25, but that's allowed with a master sign program. And then the type of lighting is consistent with best practices in the city and in the design standards, the reverse channel halo lit lighting. The max area per sign, 25 feet. They're going over 25 feet for one of the signs, and then all signs are less than 75% of the length of the facade, and 84 square feet is less than the allowable 140. So this project did go to DRSC, and I hope the two of you who are here remember a little bit more of the process than I do, because I wasn't at that DRSC meeting. But from this slide, it looks like that it was discussed that it would be a good idea, but not necessarily a strong mandate from DRSC, that they install that sign on the corner, the blade sign that would be visible from both sides. And then the second item was discussed was sizing and placement of the sign, I think specifically the restaurant signage along El Camino Real and Vista Valencia, the two wall signs. So they've lowered the proposed sign along Vista Valencia a little bit, and then they reduced the size of the El Camino Real sign a little bit. Staff recommendations to determine the project exempt from CEQA, existing facilities, and to adopt Resolution PC 25-015, approving DSP 25-313 for a master sign program. And that master sign program would allow signage generally consistent with what's in your staff report and the renderings, but the whole point of a master sign program is it might change a little over time, as long as they're within the confines of the master sign program. That concludes staff's presentation.
So Zach, it's just the two, the one on the painted one on the building and then the blade sign? Just the two?
There is room in the master sign program as proposed by staff for approval and as requested by the applicant for either, my understanding is 3 wall signs or 2 wall signs and 1 blade sign. And so if the applicant is here, I think we should ask what they have in mind when they open. But in theory, the sign master program would allow for either of those options today, and it would allow them to change out, or a future tenant to change out in the future.
I think what you're forgetting is the Pilates sign.
Okay.
So 2 for the restaurant
Yeah.
and 1 for the Pilates.
Thank you. That's where I would, thank you very much. Okay.
That's right, 2 maximum for the restaurant on the wall and one blade.
Yes, very good. Okay, that gets me back in there. Should we hear from the applicant, everybody? Okay. Zach, can you introduce the applicant, please?
I don't know the applicant's name.
My
Can
name
you
is
introduce yourself?
Yeah, my name is Ryan. It's good to see some of you guys again from the last meeting. I'm representing my client on this project.
Sir, we just, as our rules are, we got to do the 10 minutes. Is that all right? Can you do?
Oh, yeah, of course.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right. Great. Welcome.
Thank you. I see the clock here.
Yeah.
Zach, thank you very much. It was great. You are correct. The intent was to have 2 wall signs, not all 3. So it's kind of an either or option for that secondary location. They could either have the wall sign or the blade sign, so it won't all be at once. So 2 signs max. But I know my client's intent is to do the wall sign, not the blade sign. But if somebody was to come after them in the future and they weren't there no longer, they would have the option to have the blade sign instead of a wall sign. So I'm here for any more questions you may have.
Okay, can I facilitate a little conversation with the applicant? Is that all right? Okay, because I'm just a little confused, because I have we look at the rendering, but what you're telling, let me see if I understand what you're saying. This rendering with the blade sign is what you'd like to be permitted, but what you're not showing is what most likely you're not going to do the blade. You're going to put a sign on the building that you're showing. I guess that would be the north face of it. But then you're suggesting, I guess it would be the east face, that it'll be another painted sign on the building, where the blade sign is?
They're not painted sign, actually. It's a channel letter wall sign, halo lit wall sign.
Okay.
You are correct, though. The blade sign the sign program just allows options. It doesn't actually, it's not the permanent, actual sign permit itself. So the intent for my client is A and B are going to be the 2 wall signs.
Locations.
Correct.
Okay, and it could either be mounted or a blade? A projection blade sign?
On that one side, yes. But they're only going to be moved forward with 1, which is the wall sign.
Okay, and that's on the north side of the building?
That's correct.
So the side of the building that's frontage of El Camino Real, nothing?
Actually, I think that would be the east side.
Okay,
I'm
yeah.
thinking that location.
Yes, east,
Yeah,
right.
east.
Right,
Yes.
the one that's right on El Camino Real, so no sign there other than the Pilates sign.
There would be a wall sign there.
Oh, okay,
They're gonna have Pilates and the restaurant name here, but they're not gonna build the blend.
Yeah.
And then on the other side, they're gonna have the.
on the tenant sign.
Be similar to,
Yeah, I'm just, is it going to be both are going to be the same then?
yes.
Okay, all right, gotcha. Okay. Can I ask you one more question?
Of course.
One of from the design review, one of the things that we did discuss is the palm tree that's on, again, I'm referring to as the north side. That would block that sign?
That would not block that sign.
Would not.
That is the reason for the location.
Okay, it's
palm
high
tree-
enough?
Yes, and the palm tree is more centered right over the archway.
Got it,
Mhm,
okay.
Which is the reasoning for, and that area allows for a little bit of a larger sign as well.
Okay. And you're saying it's channel lit, so
Yeah, correct.
indirect lighting?
Indirect lighting, so it's halo lit, so it's the lighting comes from the back. It doesn't come from the face.
Yeah.
It glows against the wall.
Gotcha.
It's very
Okay.
clean looking.
Yeah, and it's not too bright at
No,
night.
no.
Okay,
Can I ask a question?
yeah, we're gonna just go through, we don't need the timer, he's concluded, now we're just gonna ask you questions, if that's okay.
Yeah, of course.
So we can turn that off. Okay, Commissioner McCann.
I guess I have a question for staff, because they're talking about doing a wall sign on El Camino side for the restaurant or a blade sign in the master sign program. Is the master sign program clear that it's an either or?
Yes, the way the applicants proposed it, and it's on page 2 of your staff report, it says wall signage 2, and then below that it says projecting sign, blade sign, optional 1 total. In lieu of a secondary wall sign, the restaurant tenant would have the option of installing a double-sided side on the corner of the building.
Okay, perfect, thank you.
Yeah, so the idea would be, this entitlement would run with the property, so in the future, there's a flexibility. Is that a fair characterization of this?
Yes.
Action? Okay. Are there any other questions of the applicant or staff on this? Okay. All right. Thank you. We'll let you
Guys.
know if we have any follow-up questions.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
being here
Thank you.
tonight. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and close the public hearings.
What about comments, public comments?
Oh, that's right, thank you. Any member from the public want to speak to this? I don't have any cards, so I'm assuming not, but going once, all right. No member of the public wants to speak. Closing the public hearing, open it up to discussion by members. Scott, why don't you lead us off on this, if you would?
Sure, I was on Design Review Subcommittee. They did make some adjustments. I think it's perfectly appropriate and fine and clean. And I'm supportive of the project. And I can make the requisite
Quite-
findings.
Excellent. Okay, anyone else have any comments? Commissioner Prescott Loeffler, see you turn your
I have
mic
a great
on.
deal of confidence in the design review committee, and based on what's in front of us, looks very clean, and I can reach the recommendations as well.
Okay. Any other comments? Scott, do you want to make a motion?
Sure. I move that we approve PHP 25-288 and DSP 25-313 for the Valencia Building Master Sign Program. And
And that include the
Exempt.
it includes the recommendations per the staff report,
and the CEQA
including the
finding?
CEQA finding.
Okay.
Second?
All right, we have a motion to approve the application from Commissioner McCann, seconded by Commissioner McCacken. And this based on discussion from members that the findings can be made, which I concur with. Is there any other discussion on this motion? Okay, all those in favor of the motion? Aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimous. You have your master plan, signed plan.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thanks for doing a professional job with your work products. We
Yeah, nice job.
appreciate the effort you put into it. Okay. We have the third of our 4 public hearings next, so it's item 8C. And this is a public hearing for project 25-395 It's a zoning amendment, which is, the zoning amendment is 25396, and it's an update to our emergency shelter overlay. So the commission is being asked to provide recommendations on this to the city council to update development standards and operational management standards on the emergency shelter overlay to ensure it's consistent with the housing element and state law. Zach, are you also doing the staff report here? Okay. Let me, again, any disclosures on this? Okay, I have none on those, so I'm going to go ahead and open the public hearing. Public hearing is now open, so I'm going to turn it over to Senior Planner Zach Ream for the staff report.
Thank you. As Chair Cosgrove said, this is the Emergency Shelter Overlay District update. I won't read the numbers again. As background, the city has an emergency shelter overlay already. It was adopted in 2017 pursuant to a state law that went into effect in 2006. And there was an emergency shelter study to figure out where the city wanted to allow these shelters to go by right that happened back in 2016 and 2017. I'll get to that in the next couple slides, but there's a location, which is the Rancho San Clemente Business Park, where it was decided that the overlay would cover. In 2018, the city launched the SC Rides program, also in response to SB2 and in response to some other bills related to housing and transitional emergency shelters that require transportation options to be available to sites that are identified in our overlay. So that was part of the reason that the SC Rides program was initiated, so that it could get up here, because we didn't have regular bus or trolley service. In 2021, the city wrote the housing element. It was certified in 2022. We had to, again, survey the emergency shelter overlay that had been first identified in 2017, and again, confirm that it was adequately served by transit and that it was in adequate proximity to jobs. In 2023, the city, through its housing element implementation, reviewed the standards by which an emergency shelter could be permitted and operated and conditioned. And that led to a 2024 study that was paid for by the Southern California Association of Governments for a consultant to tell us how best to change our development standards and operational standards within the emergency shelter overlay that could be applied to a future shelter. And also to look at the overlay itself to see if adjustments were needed to the boundaries to comply with any state law or any changes in transportation or jobs proximity. So this is where it started again. Senate Bill 2 was a 2006 law that said cities had to encourage and facilitate emergency shelters. The law says that cities can't deny emergency shelters or transitional housing or supportive housing unless there are very specific circumstances, and unless the city had specific areas that were zoned for these facilities, then the city has more discretion about applications that come before it. So bullet point 2 is local governments must identify and zone for sufficient capacity to meet all of the locality's identified need for emergency shelter. That's not defined in the law, but has been interpreted by other cities and the state to mean that we need to zone for the capacity that would be approximate to the number of unhoused individuals that we have living in the city. That's how we figure out approximately how many shelters could be developed. It doesn't mean the city has to develop the shelters. It means we need to zone and have standards allowing those shelters to be provided should a nonprofit partner choose to provide the services in one of the zones. So this is the zone that was decided on back in 2016, and then it was revisited through the housing element process in 2021, 2022. The state certified it and said it was okay, that it met the proximity requirements for jobs and transit due to our SC Rides program and due to the fact that we're reasonably close to some employment centers. And again, the boundaries here are the Rancho San Clemente Business Park, and that's basically the area all around City Hall up here, which is not zoned residential, but it's an overlay. So on top of the underlying commercial zoning, the emergency shelter overlay applies. So you could have that use as a by right use. We've revisited the overlay, and I'll get to that in a couple slides, but staff's not proposing any changes to the boundaries, so we're proposing the same boundaries we had in 2016 and 2022 to remain. The housing element has 17 programs related to housing. Program 15, specifically items 5 and 6 of Program 15, talk about the emergency shelter overlay, and it says every 2 years, the city needs to assess reliable data and consider input. I think there should be a ... here. These are pretty long policies. And then it says specifically, number 6 is written into the housing element, that in 2023, the city will update the development standards. In 2024, we'll evaluate additional areas of the city for inclusion, and then we will amend the emergency shelter overlay to include both of those assessments in 2025. This is part of Objective 5, which was the one that got cut off in the last slide, but it says every 2 years, as shelters are proposed, the city shall assess and update our unmet homeless shelter needs, and then review an analysis of data and consideration of input from service providers in the area will be brought before the city to consider these updates. So this gets into the homeless counts, the biannual homeless census, which is called the Point in Time Survey, and that's conducted by cities in collaboration with the Orange County Continuum of Care. Every 2 years, we do counts. I've participated in these counts before, where we go around the city and we walk or we go in vehicles, and it's a rough approximation of the number of unhoused individuals in the city, both completely unsheltered and then also an estimate of people who may be living in their vehicles. So we've done these counts in, I think the next slide's going to show the answer to that. We did these counts in 2016, which identified 35 unsheltered homeless individuals. And then we did it in 2019. There was an uptick to 96. In 2022, there were 81. In 24, there were 65. And that was the most recent survey in January 2024. There'll be another one probably in early 2026. But based on this data and based on the state law as written, we need to update our standards to allow for emergency shelters to serve this population should a nonprofit provider step in, or should the city itself decide to do that. This is the same kind of map that we went through in 2016 and 2021 and 2022, and again in 2024. I'm not going to go into too much detail, but it shows that the area where we already have the ESO is qualifying because it's dark purple. There's 2 other areas that we could expand to. Staff's not recommending an expansion, but the consultant did this work and basically certified that the area we have is adequate to meet the size and the need. So staff's recommending some updates, which are the last 4 pages in your packet. I'm not going to go into too much detail in this presentation of the specific tweaks we're recommending to the zoning code. But in general, they would allow shelters to be built in the same place. We're recommending an increase in the population that would be allowed from 35 to 45. That's because in the original ESO back in 2016, the city only had, based on those counts, 35 unhoused individuals. Now we have more. It's ticking down from the last count that we had the last couple of years, but we have a greater population than when we had when the ESO was first established. So staff's recommending an increase in the count per shelter that would be allowed from 35 to 45. These shelters would have to be permitted ministerially, they would be subject to design standards, and then they'd be subject to development standards and operational best practices, of which the consultant helped staff increase the number of development standards and operational practices to make sure that these sites are operated in a professional way by a potential service provider. And that was based on outreach that this consultant, the city, worked with, consulted with both service providers themselves and with some other cities to try and establish best practices that are allowable under the law that we could hold a future operator to through conditions of approval. So that's mostly what's in your packet, is the additional standards which would allow us to better regulate a potential shelter, and then the size of the shelter would be allowed to go from 35 to 45 individuals. I can get into some of the details if you want, but staff's recommending approval of the changes in the zoning amendment at the last 4 pages of your packet, and that's Planning Commission hearing item PC 016, which would recommend that the City Council consider and adopt the same zoning amendment with the changes identified in the packet, and that would be subject to ZA 25-396, which would be presented at a public hearing to the City Council. And that concludes my comments.
So Zach, you're referring to attachment 2 of the
Yes.
packet and the red lines.
The red
In this
lines.
case, they're blue on ours.
Yes.
Our versions. Okay, so Is there a desire to ask questions of staff or to go through the changes? Do we want to go through the changes and look at those, or has everyone familiarized themselves with them? I mean, they look pretty standard to me with respect to things like food areas, storage, exterior lighting, that kind of thing.
It looks like the only major change is the count.
Mm-hmm.
Has, because of the requirement, we have to
I do like
meet.
some of the things that have been added here with respect to staff training programs, signage around the rules of the shelter has been added, facility rules to maintain a safer environment, both inside and outside of the area. So I do think there's some worthwhile things that have been added. So I'm pretty comfortable with this. So let's open it up to,
Comments? I'm good with it. I mean, I
okay.
agree. There's some good things in there. I like the separation of families. There's increased lighting, there's increased screening.
Yep.
There's storage areas. I think it's all good. I'd be happy to.
okay, let me just check in with the audience. Any member of the public want to speak to this? Seeing none, I just turn back to my colleagues for additional discussion.
Ready to approve.
Okay,
Good,
all right.
comprehensive,
Karen, did you feel comfortable making a motion?
if I can read it. I'll make the motion.
I'm going to go ahead and close the public hearing.
It's right there on your screen.
I'll make it's right in front of me. I'm looking at it down here. I'll make the motion to recommend that the city council determine that the zoning code amendment is categorically exempt from the requirements of secret pursuant to the Public Resource Code 21083.3 and guidelines section of 15183. Note that there was a typo in the original staff report and reso, and were highlighted here, and adopt PC 25-016, recommending that the city council adopt an ordinance approving zoning amendment ZA 2-396.
Just for the
Dash five.
benefit of the public, the
Yeah.
typo in the original staff report was related to Public Resources Code, Section 21083.3. We had replaced the 8 with a 9 in, I think, in the whereases section of the resolution. The one in the resolution itself was always correct, and the one in the public notice was always correct, but we would just replace any 21083.3 where there was a 9 in there before, in 2 instances.
I will second that. Any discussion on the motion from Commissioner Prescott Loeffler, seconded by Chair Cosgrove, me? No further discussion? Okay, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Hearing none, it passes unanimously. Thank you, Zach, for the presentation and Karen for the motion. Okay, we have our next item on the agenda is another public hearing. It's item 8D. And this is a public hearing for project 25-398. And it's a general plan amendment for Senate Bill 1425, which is to be in compliance with it regarding open space. And it is a request of the Planning Commission, again, to make a recommendation to the City Council to approve an amendment to our general plan that's needed for compliance with the Senate Bill 1425, as well as the CEQA determination. So any disclosures anyone wants to make? Hearing none, I'll open the public hearing. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to our professional staff, Brandon Hanley, to make the presentation. Hello.
Good evening, Commissioners. I returned with a staff report for the general plan update 25-399. As we discussed in our previous meeting, this general plan amendment is covering Senate Bill 1425, which requires that cities update their open space plans by January 1st, 2026 to address climate resilience strategies and correlate them with the safety element, equitable access to open space, and rewilding opportunities within open spaces. Since we last spoke, there has been some developments regarding the safety element and further state laws that we can incorporate into the safety element that also tie into our open space. Those are the following. SB 1035 requires safety elements to address climate adaptation and resiliency strategies similar to SB 1425. It is necessitated by the update of our safety element and our LHMP. It needs to happen every 8 years at least, but since we updated our LHMP, it needs to happen sooner. Very similar to the previous law, but focuses more on the climate adaptation aspects. The next law is AB 747, which requires local governments to identify evacuation routes and analyze their capacity, safety, and viability under a range of emergency scenarios. This also relates to an older bill, SB 99, which talks about access to areas that have a single egress in residential developments. The project's purpose is to implement these 3 state laws, improve the city's emergency preparedness, and update our general plan policies accordingly. We discussed in the last meeting how the approach is going to be a prescriptive one where we're going to identify the needs under these laws and then make amendments to the necessary elements of our general plan in order to meet it, which is the least invasive approach, rather than create an entirely new element, which is a suggestion in these laws. We're going to add some climate resilience and benefits sections to the safety element by incorporating our LHMP and some language to support the LHMP. We are also going to add equitable access language to our coastal and natural resources elements. We are going to also add rewilding opportunities, which are discussed in the LHMP, into the natural resources element. As far as the safety element goes, we are going to, as I stated, integrate the LHMP. We're also going to clean up some sections from previous general plan amendments that added language as precursors to the LHMP. Now that we have it, we can remove those things. And we also have to update our fire maps. So we have 3 maps that already exist as figures in the safety element, and then we need to add an additional 2, one of which shows an evacuation map, and then one that has the residential developments with single egress per state requirements. This is the language that we're adding to the safety element in order to integrate the LHMP. The first paragraph is from a meeting that we had with Fire Captain Joe Kennedy, who represents the California Fire Land Use Planning Program. He also spoke at the APA conference last week. We met with him on September 18th, and he kind of discussed with us some feedback he had looking at our existing safety element and provided some recommendations. So the first paragraph is his language. The second paragraph is our language, incorporating the LHMP and adding some of that resiliency language from SB 1425 and 1035. This is an example of some of the changes that we made to the figures. We already had this in the general plan safety element. This shows the fire hazard severity zones, and it's overlaid with the critical facilities in the city. The next figure is the updated fire hazard severity zones map. This is our city's evacuation maps. It shows the highway as well as main arterial roads. And finally, this is the map that identifies single egress parcels in our city. Here is the language that we are going to add to our coastal element related to access. And then here is the section in our natural resources element related to access. This is the section in the natural resources element that discusses climate resilience and co-benefits. This is also the same language that's in our local hazard mitigation plan. So staff is recommending that the Planning Commission recommend that the City Council adopt this general plan amendment, and it also recommends that the Planning Commission find this project exempt from CEQA, specifically sections 7 and 8, class 7 and 8. Which allow for CEQA exemptions for the protection of natural resources and protection of the environment. And that concludes the staff presentation.
Thank you, Brandon. This is a lot of information that you've pulled together. What I think is interesting is it's kind of an interesting collection. You know, it's not all necessarily related. You know, you've got safety, and then you've got these other matters with respect to rewilding and other. And I think what I would summarize where we're at on this is that this is in this LHMP is the local hazard mitigation plan. I would highlight that that's actually quite important, and we probably don't spend enough time on this. I'm not suggesting we spend more, but I'm wanting to take something that's maybe a little bit routine here and just highlight how important this is. I find a couple things. The hazards that we have in San Clemente, I think, are pretty significant. And one of the things like, for example, the wildfire. In here, you're referencing that wildfire is one of the most destructive hazards in San Clemente, which I agree with. But you're not framing it, I think, as well as you could. And I know this is old language. You haven't changed this part, but it's on page 20 of 42 where it's defined that San Clemente is adjacent to expansive open space resources such as the Richard and Donna O'Neill Conservancy to the north, and to the east, and is the San Onofre State Beach and Camp Pendleton, that these are large open space areas of urban wild land that contain a lot of vegetation and fuels. All correct. What we're missing here is our own very high wildfire hazard zones in the city. This kind of points outside the city. It's correct. But we have no language in here acknowledging what you just put on the map there. This amount of red is significant. This is thousands of acres of open space with invasive, dry, non-native plant material or vegetation all throughout our open space that CAL FIRE has designated as the highest wildfire risk that they have in their classification system. I think we need to do more to acknowledge this. and plan for this. I do notice that in the evacuation route, we have many single route evacuation paths. And that, yeah, right, go back. Or this one, that's right. As you can see, if you look, and it's nice because we've got the wildfire there in the muted red. We don't have multiple routes. We have single routes throughout the city. Probably not a lot we should be talking about that tonight, but I think that's a risk we need to include in our safety component. That these evacuation routes are single-threaded, and to the degree that the city can risk assess those and ensure that whatever steps need to be taken during a natural disaster can be taken, and it may vary. So for wildfire, okay, so I'm talking about this because if you look at any of the recent wildfire disasters, just for sake of example, whether it be Lahaina, Paradise, the Pacific Palisades, the Eaton Fire, lives were lost because evacuation routes failed. They were congested, they were blocked, nobody could leave, and there was there's nothing to remediate that at all. So I think it's a risk. I think we need to highlight that, and perhaps in the future there might be mitigations we can do or things we can do about that. But for now, I think I would encourage the staff to consider adding that as a risk, in addition to adding our own thousands of acres of open space that's very high fire hazard to our commentary. Am I making sense?
Yes,
Okay.
we hear you.
Okay.
And in the meeting that Brendan referenced with the CAL FIRE, Board of Forestry, and Fire Protection, one of the leaders of that agency, our Community Development Director, Adam Matamian, was there. And we have a work plan, and we have also a dedicated staff position that's not me and Brendan that works on emergency services, both the planning aspects and the more practical aspects of it. So this is a multi-year process. We're trying to get this into our general plan because frankly, this was supposed to be done a couple of years ago. But we're going to keep planning for it. And in theory, we can keep updating the safety element. Every time we update the general plan, we're supposed to look at the safety element.
I just want to put a voice on this because while all of us very much appreciate, and we spend a lot of our time talking about the great amenities of our community, the beauty of our community, I think we've got, as public officials, I think our public safety is our highest duty. And we must pay attention to these matters. I know they seem boring or it could be routine, and we're just trying to update this as per the state law. But I think we should take a moment and acknowledge the fact that not only is the wildfire, but we've got the San Onofre nuclear generating plant nearby as well. So we have a number of very high hazards to health and safety, and I just want to encourage our staff to expand, keep working on these things, keep bringing it to our attention. Let's continue to refine the safety element in our general plan. Let's continue to make it better. And I think we have a long way to go here with respect to redundancies in evacuation, addressing the wildfire risk, doing public education. We have a long way to go, I think. And that's just my pitch here. I'm all good with the changes that you're recommending for the state law, but I want to urge us to take it seriously and perhaps look at it not from the perspective of what the state is telling us, but to look at it from our own self-interest perspective and how we can, for our own self-preservation, do a better job in these matters of public safety, and in particular, land that represents actual hazards. Is that a fair
Yes, Chair
comment
Cosgrove.
for you guys?
If I could add some supporting comments. This general plan amendment and incorporating the local hazard mitigation plan is a jumping off point or the bones of a much greater project that's going to span multiple years that fleshes out a lot of the stuff that is outlined in this general plan amendment. We discussed that at length in a heavily attended meeting at the APA conference, where all of the concerns that you have are being addressed by both actors in the state as well as consultants and other cities.
Yeah, I don't know if it's something that you guys want to include in your commentary to the city council. I'll leave it up to you. I'm not going to make a motion. But I'm just giving you my perspective that we, as an organization, the city organization, the local government, our highest charge is public safety. And when you look at the natural hazards that we have in our community, there's many and they're significant. And I do think that we need to make our elected officials aware of the nature of them, the extent of them, and where we kind of stand with respect to our status of preparedness, community engagement, and all the planning elements that go into the safety element of our general plan, so that we can ensure that the public safety is safeguarded. And I think we're lacking in this in our community here. So I would just encourage the staff to consider that, maybe talk with management, and just, if you're so inclined to, I would encourage you to continue to think about how we can put together programs, information, to further build this out and further serve the community's safety, and bring that to the council's attention, that we have a lot of work to do here. And if, to the degree that you can define work programs, projects, or just aspirational goals that we ought to be looking at as in terms of best practices that you're hearing from these conferences, and as you confer with experts and they suggest, a portfolio of things and policy and actions and projects, you bring those into the discussion and you bring it to light and you put it in front of the council to consider. Make them aware that we are on a journey and there is quite a bit of work in front of us. Because I think if we just do a pro forma, here's the staff report, we're updating it per state regulations, and we're not really talking about and honestly where we stand with respect to just our own policy and what we're facing in our own community, and maybe what our gap is, that's something I think we could improve on. That's just my feeling about it. And I hope you're not offended by that, or you feel like that's productive.
No, I'm encouraged by that because, as Brendan said, this is going to be a multi-year program, and honestly, we need a little bit more staff support and a little bit more money. This will qualify us for some grants that allow us to continue to
I would
pursue
just
opportunities.
try and
we will
put
present
it
to
into
council.
action for the council to see that and what you're recommending further.
If I may interject.
Yeah, I'm done.
All of those are good points, well taken. Gentlemen, what is the time frame? Are you on a deadline for all of this?
So, after this meeting, this updated safety element is going to go to the Board of Forestry from CAL FIRE. They're going to provide more formal feedback. And then we are on a timeline to try and get this to City Council by the end of the year. And if that doesn't happen because of Board of Forestry review, then it will be early next year.
Is there any type of compliance with the state? Does it mitigate anything if we're not quite on their time schedule?
The state law provides that, SB 1425, that all three of those sort of extraneous concepts, not only the fire, but all three of them were meant to be addressed in the year 2025, by January 1, 2026. We've discussed this with the state and also with our peer cities, and most cities aren't going to quite meet that deadline. As long as we're making demonstrable progress and we can report it our annual progress report to the state, which comes out in April of next year, I think we'll be in good shape. The one thing Brendan didn't quite mention, we also have to do tribal consultation per state law anytime you update the general plan, and that started this week, so that's going to be 90 days out. We'll probably not be going to City Council until January.
So this was a good benchmark to start with, and as Cameron mentioned, there's more to do, but it looks like we're meeting the basic requirement of the state, which does not preclude us from going past it.
Yes. And we will try and provide as much breadth and context and urgency and passion to the City Council as we can in our report. At least in our written work, we'll see how much time and interest it generates, but it's a staff priority.
It is certainly a focus with everything that has happened up to this point with all the other cities and their fires.
The main benefit of getting this general plan amendment underway and getting started on a lot of these things is it's going to provide access to grant funding, which can help us increase our resources to address these problems outlined in the fire hazard risks, as well as work towards some of the goals in our local hazard mitigation plan.
What do you need from us tonight?
We're looking for recommendation to forward this document, which includes the safety element. If you'd like to give us some feedback on additional language in the safety element, you could do that. We have the entire safety element with some red lines that we're recommending be forwarded to the city council for their consideration in approximately January, after we consult with the California Department of Forestry and any potentially interested tribal governments. If we get substantive comments from the Board of Forestry or tribal governments, we would come back to the Planning Commission and see if you like those comments.
Okay.
I'm in favor of moving it on, but it does bring up the question from some of the comments. It seems like people want to know, what is the plan the police department has for evacuation, or the Orange County Sheriff? But this is a good start. This is what the state requires, because I don't even know what they have planned, but I would sure hope that when you look at the main arterials, I don't see that as the problem, because if their plan is, okay, everybody can only come out, then you got 4 lanes in these major arterials. The problem is, how soon, like, would I be notified, because I'm way up here at the top? Because I can get cut off by streets that are in my neighborhood if the fire were to come across and I didn't know soon enough. So,
From behind you?
like, it's really, it's not complicated, but it is, a lot depends on the agencies notifying the public in time so that they can get out soon, which, in some situations hasn't happened. But was it 2 weeks ago? I did get a notice on my phone
test.
and my computer and everything that if there was, so I think what you're asking is what the council has to kind of ask is actually what is our local sheriff, because we're county, right? We're not independent. What the county's evacuation plan, both sheriff and fire department for notification and evacuation. But I don't think this is a part of it. That's the city's objective. I think the state just wants to see the skeleton, like what you said. So I'm ready to approve it.
We did actually consult both OCFA and OCSD prior to bringing this to council the first time, part of our fact-finding process. And they did provide us some of their material, what they were able to share with us about their own evacuation protocols.
I'm going to backtrack. I said I wasn't going to include it in the motion, but I think Zach, I heard you say, make a request. Do you want to change this?
Yeah,
I'm gonna-
we're open to language.
Okay, I'm going to float this by my colleagues. Right now, the fire description in the general plan you're suggesting no wording at this time. I would, right? It's the same.
Well, if you look at the next page, I don't have the same PDFs as you do, but the
Okay.
page after the one you referenced, there's a paragraph that says California Senate Bill 1241
Yes.
requires, and then we're recommending in red line, you should see the city adopted an ordinance in June 2025 that incorporates the fire hazard severity zones reflected by the updated state maps. That was identified in order to show that the city is incorporating the changes in fire severity within the city boundaries.
Okay.
But we could add some more context about why that's important and how it covers a big area of the
Recommending
city.
the city council should respond to that.
Yes.
Like, they could ask questions, what are we doing in the red zones that now are identified that weren't identified before? We could make that we suggest they look at that and establish policy based on that new information.
Okay, I like it. I think I'd like to see if I could get a consensus of my colleagues to maybe add some additional language from the Planning Commission that staff could either pass along, or you could choose to find the right place to update the general plan. Is that okay?
I think we'd ask you to tell us generally that the page or the context
Yes.
of the safety element where you want it to be inserted. But yeah, you're reviewing language that we're proposing
So
to
right
change.
now, what I'm looking at on the PDF is page 20, and it's the fire section that I read before. And what I'd like to see us do is add language that within the city of San Clemente, there are thousands of acres of open space that that CAL FIRE has designated as very high wildfire hazard, because that land contains thousands of acres of flammable, hazardous, non-native vegetation, and the city lacks a vegetation management program to address this very high fire hazard risk. And I think we need to, something to that effect needs to go in here to acknowledge that it's not just outside the city, it's inside the city that we have this risk. And that we need to be considering, we need to just, I think, identify it in here. And then if you want to identify that we should consider the vegetation management programs and also the impact of evacuations on these new fire maps, on the fire maps and the evacuation routes, something to that effect, that these are areas of attention that the staff would like to get direction from the city staff, the city council, on how to move forward.
Can I address that?
Yeah,
Do you know for a fact that there's thousands of acres of open space in the city?
I do.
More than 2,000?
Mm-hmm.
You know that?
Yep.
Okay,
There's a map of open space that's about 5,000 acres. That's the red.
okay.
Well, there's also residential.
Well, there's a lot of residential
houses
in the
in
red. Yeah.
There's,
Yeah.
why don't we just make a simple sentence saying that we recommend the council note the new very high-risk fire
As identified
map
by.
as identified, and establish policy that protects those areas, and possibly,
That sounds
work
great.
in it.
I mean, I
That way,
agree.
That sounds
we're
good.
just notifying them, we notice it,
Yeah.
we hope you're noticing
Highlighting
it,
it,
to
Yes.
protect
highlighting
the,
Yeah.
without getting into,
Yeah,
I agree with Gary's a lot more, but I mean, I do want to say, and I'm sure Karen knows this probably better than anyone, but I think the council is very aware of the fire issue, and they're, actively doing and looking at things to try and address it. So I just don't think that it's like, I don't think that they're not aware of it as being an important
yeah.
issue.
I think we should support that awareness.
Do you have to have the language in there, or can we just go ahead and approve this with a recommendation outside of inserting language?
I think we can just say with that, we recommend that the council look at the,
With a recommendation?
yeah, and make appropriate
I guess
decisions.
I would like to, maybe we can bifurcate it and have a recommendation to look at the risk. But in the general plan, again, we completely ignore our internal wildfire risk. It's just not even mentioned. And that, I think it deserves mention.
Open discussion here.
Yeah.
Gentlemen, if we were just to go ahead and add with a highlight of identifying that is not in this, the CAL FIRE, does that change anything? Does that delay anything on your side? Or is it just an additional language that we can just simply insert?
I think I understood the tenor of Chair Cosgrove's initial context that we would propose be added to page S8 about just the general risk that the city faces and the fact that it's important to plan for it. If you have a side direction that you'd like staff to explore or just a message you'd like to communicate to the council, I think that should be a separate part of your motion. So the first part of your motion, I
That's a
think, was
good-
captured.
What he said, changing that, then council should take the appropriate action. Because it's here in the map, but it's not here in the language.
Yes.
Right.
But just what you said did say that the council should look at, what we've noticed is that high fire risk area and make appropriate policy.
Yeah, it's not, it's there.
It's
but
not in the verbiage, but
but
it's there in the
not-
map.
But it's not in the verbiage, which
Right.
is where you would
Yeah,
like
that's
it.
what he would like.
And to identify,
And I think your statement satisfied.
We are proposing to amend the verbiage to say the city adopted an ordinance that added these specific maps, which are reflected in figure S6, to the general plan. And then if you look at the paragraph before that, it says inclusion within the fire hazard severity zones is based on 5 factors: density of vegetation, slope severity, 5-minute fire department response time, road class, and CAL FIRE's vegetation cover. So there's a little bit of language there. I think what Chair Cosgrove was getting was adding a little bit more context and urgency for why these maps
Tighten it up a
are
little bit.
Yes, and
important.
reference the fact that the concern, the source or fuels of wildfire are not outside, just outside the city, they're inside the city as well.
Outside and inside.
Yes,
So if it's the will of the commission, I think we could add that context to page S8, which I think is page 21 of your packet.
Okay.
That paragraph. If you have side things that you want staff to look into or you want to communicate to the council, you should probably just tell us that in a separate part of your motion, what else you'd like us to look into in the next 3 months.
what about, so I think we are agreement kind of on the fire that we want.
I
the
mean, if you
verbiage
could
as-
just say located as pointed, as attributed to the CAL FIRE map, the risks are not only outside, but also located within. And then that, at least that type of language is included along with your recommendation. I think that highlights it. Because you were looking to include.
So I'm not sure,
inside.
I mean, I want to go, I'm just not sure I was tracking you. Can you just repeat that?
That inserting the language to that S8, is it S8?
Yeah, the first paragraph on page S8.
That you would identify the CAL FIRE, what we're seeing here, but you actually stick it in there, and then you consider that it's also within, it's not just outside, but it's inside as well.
How about this? So it says here, the safety element update incorporates policies to address those recommendations and adds figure S5 to show the land use plan and critical facilities, and then it just says within, and then very high fire zones is crossed off. Do you see that, Zach?
Yeah, I think the purpose of that is the state's since adopted the high fire zones and the moderate fire zones, so we're trying to incorporate all fired hazard severity zones. That's why the VH is gone. We still have the VH, but we also have the
Also
high
includes the yellow.
and the medium, the yellow and
Okay.
the orange. We're not trying to de-emphasize the very high, we're trying to note all three of the zones.
Okay. I just want to make sure that if somebody were to read this with the introductory paragraph only referring to wildfire hazards outside the city only, none inside, that somewhere here we're referencing that. Not just pointing to a map, but we reference that we have significant amount of neighborhoods with in San Clemente, the city of San Clemente, are located within very high wildfire hazard zones. And that not just fire department response time, but I'd like to insert resident evacuation plans should be reviewed or made updated to consider this high risk, something to that nature.
So you said significant fire risk within the fire zone? Did you say that?
What I'm trying to identify is the fact that if I just read this, we have critical facilities. We also have, what I'm trying to say is we have neighborhoods. We have hundreds of neighborhoods, not just critical infrastructure. We have hundreds of neighborhoods, or whatever you want to say, many neighborhoods within these fire hazard severity zones. So that's what I would insert there, neighborhoods. And then inclusion within these fire hazard severity zones is based on 5 factors: density of vegetation, that's fine; slope, severity, fine; 5-minute fire department response time, fine. What is road class proximity? Okay, road class proximity and proximity to fire, it's fine. And then we have CAL FIRE's vegetation cover and fire behavior and fuel spread model, fine. I'd like to insert evacuation routes. Somehow need to be identified, examined, and I don't know the right language, but I want to highlight that how important those are to be considered in this management plan.
That last bit that you were asking about really sounds more like a policy, which you could certainly recommend that the city council add a policy to these list of policies, S1 through S311, and then it would be up to staff and the LHMP to actually identify evacuation plans, whereas right now we just have a map. The policy would say, over the next 5 years, staff should identify residential evacuation plans and shall update them to
Well, it
identify.
does say here, it does say,
If you look at S3,
yeah, it does say
it
that
does
we
say
will,
that, see, so that, it does say that. And it
we'll
talks
develop
about-
them.
And it does talk about public education because they need to be notified. It does talk about the fire department. So really, the only thing I don't know is what is their actual plan? So maybe I feel better about which is the one, I'm looking at S9, where does it ever say incorporation of S9? Yeah, that's what I'm trying to look at.
We may need to
'cause
reference that. S9 and S10 are new
Figure
maps.
S9, figure
Yeah.
S9. Where's figure S9 in this document? Because that's where it has the evacuation map and your routes. Is it- No, figure oh yeah, there it is. General plan information, figure S9 So it does include that. I would just have a simple sentence saying, we're concerned that the policies, because this does say they should have policies. We just don't know what the policies are.
Can you say determine neighborhoods and fire
Maybe
hazard
we just
zones?
note that we have a concern that the city has appropriate policies to the new fire hazard, map.
And I think also
And that would-
a work
that's
plan
mine.
to actually implement them,
Now,
not
this
just,
talks about the skeleton of it. It's up to them to actually have the policy.
yeah.
The actual, what is the sheriff gonna do?
And the
What's
wo-
the fire department gonna do? That's up to them, the council, to get that. But this general thing does say that they need to do it. So if they're following this document, they should be doing it,
Yeah, they should, right. that-
right? So I mean,
They
we're
should
just,
be.
so I would just have a simple sentence that the city, maybe the council also recommend the council review their
They should identify and determine the neighborhoods.
their
in the fi- in the
policies for a major fire or disaster in the
In
city.
the fire,
And how
because that
How the
is,
population can be safely evacuated.
Okay.
But it's also not just evacuation, it's also notice, the whole,
And prevention as well.
that's in here too,
Okay,
for weed abatement and all the kind
There
of,
was a revenue source for that.
if only.
so I'm in favor of maybe just moving it forward with maybe just a simple recommendation sentence saying that we'd like the council to pay especially acute attention with regard to policy of the new fire map.
So that wouldn't be an amendment to the general plan. That would be the consensus of the planning commission that we communicate
Telling
that
the council
recommendation.
saying, look at it,
Yeah.
because we're concerned about it. And actually asking what will the new policy be with this new map? Will it be earlier notification? Will it be the police department saying nobody comes in and people can only go out? That kind of stuff, because that's the two things I need to know, is earliest possible to get out, and the second is getting out.
What, yeah, and
A lot
it's,
of people are killed because they don't get out.
that's right, and it's just having an active plan,
Right.
where it's actually, where's traffic control going to be situated? How are we going to move people out safely? All that.
What if we just had a separate recommendation that said, planning commission recommends to city council that they, beyond adopting this general plan update amendment, that they, create an action plan around dealing with
Notice and evacuation.
fire areas and evacuation
Yeah.
plans.
Notice and
I
evacuation.
like that, a work program, an action plan and a work program to address the very high fire hazards in neighborhoods, including notifications and evacuations
Prevention.
and, preparedness and prevention. Is that
That's fine.
fine?
So
Simpler sentence. the
if
better.
I could interject, the multi-hazard emergency plan is referenced at the first page of the safety element, and you guys are referring to creating a more robust version of,
Where do we find that, Brandon?
that would be on page S1 of the safety element.
How do I find that on the PDF? Oh,
Okay.
S1,
So that would be like page 12 or 13 maybe.
Yeah, it's a giant.
14.
Same page as the graphic with the umbrella and the Jeep.
oh, right here.
Second paragraph.
It does sound like that plan accomplishes what you all are asking for, but I think we would fold into your recommendation to City Council that that plan be updated and digitized, because right now what we have is a giant paper document that's not even on the website or shared widely with
Not
staff.
very actionable.
Yeah, that we make that plan updated, which is one of the initiatives we've discussed with CAL FIRE and with our designated emergency management staff, which are again, not Brendan and me, but that document.
Is
could
that
be-
updating the general plan, or is it a recommendation for a work program?
That document's not in the general plan. It's a side actionable plan, an action plan that would be carried out by, first responder staff and also responding city
Why
staff.
don't we just make a sentence that's saying, we think that that paragraph is significant, that the city needs to have policies to address that paragraph.
Okay.
And it's only the council that can do it.
So we are in this recommendation, recommending that the city council incorporate the local hazard mitigation plan, which is the prevention aspect of your guys' concerns and, creating a plan to prevent
Okay,
hazards or mitigate hazards. The multi-hazard emergency plan is not incorporated into the safety element or the general plan right now. So
maybe how would we, is that the place we should focus?
Well, I liked where you all were going. I think it's fine Brendan interjected. I think where you were going is that we should have an actionable plan that is shared widely with city staff and with our first responders that
Yes.
would implement
And
the
the
general
public.
plan.
Yes.
The general plan says what these general policies, and then we're supposed to have an implementable, actionable plan. So I think we could communicate that to the city council. And if you all think that that multi-hazard is the appropriate avenue, then that should be updated.
I'm a little bit confused with how. all the
Well, we can
different-
recommend the general plan, but also recommend separately, just for emphasis, that a multi-hazard emergency plan as defined in paragraph 2 of page, whatever it is emphasized or is
What would be the
strongly
wording, Zach?
strongly recommended by the planning commission to the council.
To be updated and,
Yeah, but, well, that's what that paragraph essentially says. That they're gonna have the key resources, assign emergency planning, response responsibilities to the city. In support of agency staff, establishes communication protocols, notifying me, outlines pre-planned response actions. Provides a basis for personal training and ongoing maintenance of the city's emergency preparedness programs. Emergency preparedness means them and the local citizenry.
that's, so,
That kind of a paragraph that says,
for what it's worth, that sounds like word salad to me, like, if we just
well,
say,
it said that they
hey,
should, we recommend that that's a very important paragraph, they should do it.
Okay,
The
but
general
that
plan
doesn't-
says
that
you
doesn't-
should.
That doesn't cut to what our conversation, which is, we recommend that they create an action plan around preventing and all that other stuff, fire and evacuation, and that could be considered in the second paragraph. But we want to cut to the fire and the evacuation, right? And that just talks about blah, blah, blah. It kind of doesn't say anything. It says everything and nothing at once, the way I read it.
Can we strongly recommend?
Moderately strongly.
Zach, can you just give us some direction and from your perspective on how we can make a recommendation here?
It sounded like there was some agreement on Commissioner McCann's concept and summary a few minutes ago, that it's the recommendation of potentially a consensus of the Planning Commission that the City Council consider these amendments to the general plan, but also that the City Council encourage staff and set aside funding or seek grant funding to come up with more specific emergency response plans that would be carried out with city staff and with our first responders, and also pursue any other programs that would reduce fire risk, which I think we heard the City Council's pretty well aware of, but that you feel it's urgent they keep doing that. And anything else that you're recommending they consider that would be essentially implementing this general plan update.
Hold on a second.
how about if we just evacuation, notice and evacuation,
Starting in the Talega area.
recommend, call my house first.
They're the first, regardless of where the fire is.
Recommend that the council establish
I'm trying to write something here.
Establish early notification and evacuation policy.
Assess and establish. First, you have to identify it.
Well, I think that's the simplest thing that we're talking about is, I want to know, how are they going to notify us and how are they going to get us out of
Get
there?
us out.
Or planning commission recommends to the council that the public be noticed as to how they can be safely evacuated or safely notified and evacuated in a major disaster.
I mean, in a major disaster, it's kind of up to the individual to evacuate themselves. I mean,
That's the first part. The second part is that the public, as that person wants to evacuate,
right,
that the access is available. You know, and that's up to the fire department, the police department. So like, are all 4 lanes of Pico gonna be open just coming down the hill? You know, they have policies like that. Nobody should be to go, there should be a policy somewhere that the police department has a plan. That if there's this major fire on my block that's involving a whole, that they're gonna know, nobody's gonna come into San Clemente. There's gonna be nobody coming in from La Pata. Everything is gonna be out. Everything is gonna be going out of town rather than in.
yeah, but at the same time.
Even if you want to go up to your house and you're out of town, you're not going to be able to get in.
At the same time, I agree with you,
Yeah.
but at the same time, they're gonna be trying to rush in emergency vehicles.
Well, that's fine. Those are the only people that can actually go in.
I know, but then you probably can't have lanes coming down,
Well-
going down the wrong way.
Well, when a fire truck's coming, they can just pull the cars over to the side or whatever and let the truck go up. Or maybe you don't need all 4, but for a while you may need all 4.
Yeah, and I don't disagree with you, I'm just not a fire professional.
Or they can
to
come in
know
a different
what they
way,
do.
but that's what they should be thinking about.
Maybe I can put something out there, and Zach, you can help
Sure.
point me in the right direction here, but something to the effect that we would be making a recommendation to the city council to direct staff. So right off the bat, just direct staff and it's either create a robust work plan or implement the multi-hazard emergency plan, specifically addressing the very high fire hazard severity zones in neighborhoods, so that the city can effectively carry out its policies for wildfire prevention and response, including evacuation of its citizens, something to that effect.
I think that language is good, and we'd feel comfortable forwarding that recommendation. The one change I'd recommend is not the very high fire hazard severity zones, but all fire hazard
Okay.
severity zones.
Or how about all hazards?
Should we say all hazards? So it's not just fire, it's
I think right
Right now,
earthquake,
with
it's,
fire.
I think you focus on fire, I mean, that's
I'm
the
with you.
biggest risk.
I think so, okay.
One, or did you say?
And you just focus,
Because that will be the same
Yeah.
policy, even if there's a nuclear whatever, how are you gonna get out of town? Or a gas thing, how are you gonna get out of town? Flood, how are you gonna get out of town? So all of it ends up to notice, and how are you gonna allow us to get out of the town most expeditiously?
So Zach, it's not to build a work plan, but to implement? Is it, what is the action?
protocol.
What is the verb? Are we developing a work plan or implementing the multi-hazard emergency plan?
My suggestion would be to direct staff to implement the policies and goals of the safety element, one of which is the multi-hazard
Okay.
mitigation plan, and that plan should be updated, because we already have a plan.
but again, we're kind of getting away from fire.
Yeah.
You're like the multi-hazard, followed by the safety, followed by the this and that.
Yeah.
The biggest risk to the broadest risk to the community is a gigantic fire like Palisades.
Yeah.
We need to
I
kind
don't,
of focus
yeah,
on that.
that's exactly right. We need to have a very crisp, what are we doing to prevent it, and what are we doing if there is a wildfire
How
to,
about if we do 2 things?
okay.
Recommend approval of this,
Okay,
Okay.
yes,
and the second recommendation being the fire thing,
right,
meaning we would
Put high
recommend-
emphasis on fire,
We would recommend
The
a
CAL FIRE
specific,
identification.
fire action
Plan.
plan, including
from the city
prevention,
to,
mitigation, and evacuation.
We want to prioritize it, a priority to
There's already language everywhere around the local hazard mitigation plan and the safety plan and this and that.
So-
We're trying to focus.
yeah,
on
so
fire.
this safety element like all have been talking about, it's a lot of things. It's tsunamis, it's a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
What I think we want to do is put a
Highlight.
light on the wildfire risk and say, that needs to be made a top priority for staff to develop and implement the general plan policies and safety elements specifically for, make wildfire the top priority of this plan. I think that's what we're saying. Elevate the wildfire of all the hazards and risk that's in the safety element. We want, this planning commission is recommending that wildfire be singled out and elevated as the most important hazard for city staff to implement the general plan policies for. I think that's what we're,
Well, do it, but time out.
okay.
You're talking about implementing the general plan policies for. Do you know what the general plan policies for are regarding fire?
Well, that's what all this stuff is right here that I was trying to single out before, and then every time I did this, well, it's in S1, it's in S2, it's all here. And that the question is whether or not it gets done, and it's made a priority.
Well, but I don't know, and I don't have that memorized. Okay, so let's start there. I'll show my ignorance. But does it say like, is it specific? Create a 200-foot buffer at all wildland interfaces.
It's right here. It's these policies here, the building codes, the land use zoning, the fire, all these building code things, and it includes evacuation route, the public safety, it's all of these policies here. It's
Okay, does it
S1.
say one of them about create, what's it called?
So.
Field modification plan?
the zones.
So when you do a new development, you have to, at the edge of a wildfire, you have to create a field modification plan. And it has like zone A, zone B, zone C. I don't see anything in there, and to me, that's like the most effective thing, because it basically, you cut down the vegetation and create a buffer zone of the vegetation. I don't even see anything about that.
I
in
think
there.
that's
Commissioner McCann, if I could interject. So the local hazard mitigation plan, which we're incorporating when we do this general plan amendment, has like all of the specific details related to like how we are going to mitigate fire hazard risk, which specifically talks about like vegetation management and creating defensible space for fire hazards and stuff. Right now, that's not in there, and we're trying to do that through this recommendation. So the specific language related to how we're going to mitigate the risk of wildfires and stuff is a separate text, but it will be incorporated into the general plan with this general plan update. It's just that this document would be hundreds of pages long if it was a single thing.
Well, I wonder, and look, I don't want to be here any longer, but I'm happy to be here longer. I'm not trying to, my point is, what I'm saying is, I'm not bringing something up to try and make us sit here longer. But maybe what we need is specifically a fire plan instead of burying it in the local hazard mitigation plan, like, because that's one chapter, you know, next to radiologic disaster and tsunami and gas
Earthquake,
leak
all
and
that.
earthquake and this and that,
It's all in there.
you know, as opposed to if we had a separate fire plan. I would think that, like, people, including council, would get behind that. And I'm not saying they're not behind it, they probably are, they just don't even know it
Yeah.
yet, right? But
This can guide them to
Just
just say,
focus
yeah, do
on-
what they said.
here's the fire plan. It'd be easy for them to hold it up and say, hey, let's spend $500,000 this year on this.
Right.
Like, instead of, we're throwing it at all the hazard plan. I don't know.
I think that's what I'm trying to
Why don't we
say.
make a recommendation that they make wildfire hazard a higher priority and establish policy to provide early notice and safe evacuation of the public?
It's kind of close to what I have written
It's a
down.
little bit, I like that, but it's.
As a separate
Let's
thing, we're
make
just
it a
trying to
little
make them
broader.
look at the
is-
fire.
You know, prevention needs to
But
be
that's already
that
in here,
sentence.
right. We already, I know we already have fire prevention.
Are we on the right track, Zach? Do you understand I think what we want to do is elevate, of all the noise, of all the stuff, the goodness that's in here, I think we want to be able to create a sense of urgency with respect to creating a track or a work program by which the council directs staff to get busy on implementing all the wildfire policies.
I'm going to throw one in.
Yeah, I think I heard what you and Commissioner McCacken just said, so a synthesis of those two ideas could be communicated as your recommendation.
I'm going to do one more.
separate?
Update and prioritize evacuation plan due to extreme fire hazards.
Notice and evacuation.
Notice,
Can we add prevention? I think we just need to,
update, prioritize,
Prevention, notice, and evacuation.
notice, prevention and evacuation plan.
and
due-
respond, yeah, and also emergency response.
Emergency response due to extreme fire hazards.
Okay.
Anything else?
Zach, I want to make sure that you're comfortable that you can carry, it.
That's just a
has its-
recommendation.
You can
Just a
deliver it with our
recommendation. Just a
intended
recommendation.
effect.
Yeah, I think what we would do is synthesize the last three voices we just heard, if it's the will of the other two planning commissioners, that we focus on the things that the three of you just said. We'll rewatch the minutes and we'll synthesize that. And we will not add that as language in the general plan, but we will
Is there just a
communicate to the city
recommendation?
council that it's the planning commission's recommendation that you focus on those areas and you direct resources as such.
I think what I'd like to do is say, in addition to, the planning commission's recommending you adopt this, but in addition to the adopting this, that you focus on directing the staff to make it a priority to implement the wildfire policies with,
Do we have to say that they must direct the staff, or can we just give them
I just recommend this.
the
Yeah,
recommendation?
'cause
Let
they're
them,
the
let them decide how
policymakers.
they implement it. If you just tell them what, update, they prioritize.
Read your sentence again.
Update, prioritize, evacuation, notice, what else did you throw in there? Prevention, due to extreme fire danger.
The new,
The
'cause it's
new
new.
extreme fire danger as identified by CAL FIRE map, you could throw that in there. And then let them decide how.
just that they know, yeah, I agree. I make a motion that we recommend that the city council determine that the general plan amendment is categorically exempt from CEQA guidelines under section 15307, class 7, actions by regulatory agencies for protection of natural resources in section 15308, regulatory agencies for protection of the environment, and recommend that the city council approve the general plan amendment, which would add policies aligning the general plan with mandates related to Senate Bill 1035, Senate Bill 1425, and AB 747, and recommend
Update, prioritize the evacuation notice. There was something else in
the
there.
evacuation, the prevention, evacuation notice,
Due-
and evacuation
Procedures.
Procedures due
due to the
to,
new high fire.
to significant fire risk according to CAL FIRE.
To their new map.
As noted
Second.
by CAL FIRE map.
I think we got
Sound
that
good? Listen
one.
to the minutes.
Yeah.
I think that's it.
Is that close
Sure.
enough? Are you happy with that?
I am.
well, I'm looking at Zach to see if he thinks that this is something that's going to make a difference and that you guys can advocate for.
Yes. I don't think it captures every word that we've discussed in this meeting, but I think that last statement can be clearly communicated.
The sense of it, and that maybe you can take the spirit of our conversation and update your staff report to include our discussion.
Yes,
Would you be willing to do that as part of this motion?
yes.
Okay. All right, it's been,
Do we want to, maybe a member of the planning commission go and speak? When it goes before city council? It's a possibility.
yeah, I mean, we can,
I'm not gonna be here.
well, we don't know when it's going to go to the council, so,
Well, at that time, we can.
sure. But if
Let
you
us
want
know when
to,
it does, and we could probably get somebody to go just to
Just,
tell
Yeah.
them what our thoughts were, is that they really need to look at
yeah, the
notice
collective.
evacuation.
so we'll try and
Prevention.
get a volunteer to represent us at that discussion.
I volunteer you.
You volunteer me, okay.
He's out of the country.
I'm just kidding.
Okay, that's fine.
Ready to
I can take that as an unofficial consensus of the commission that if that comes up and I
But
feel
you've
compelled.
got all your evacuation, your priority, your notice,
And just also
CAL FIRE.
a coordinated emergency response as part of
Coordinate
that.
And significant fire danger due to the CAL FIRE new map.
The new map.
Okay. As long as, Zach, you have the essence of it, and you can incorporate it in the staff report and represent it, that's important to me,
Yes, we can, and we'll rewatch the video to make sure we capture
all of the pieces.
all of the essence, yeah.
Any other discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, that passes unanimously. Close the public hearing if I didn't already do that. New business is item 9, we don't have any. Old business is item 10, we don't have any. That takes us to number 11, reports of commissioners and staff. Any commissioner reports, questions, comments? Anyone? Any staff report?
No.
Okay. Any discussion on our TFA?
Is there going to be a meeting, next meeting?
It's staff's intent to cancel the next October meeting unless some emergency comes up and we have to have a hearing, but, yeah. Yeah, we plan to cancel.
I've misplaced my TFA, so.
I threw mine out.
Oh, you did? Okay. Okay, so we're at, oh, wow. Are we doing Boca Bluffs at the next DRSC?
That is scheduled for next Wednesday, and it's a pre-application submittal, so they're just seeking early feedback from the planning commission
Okay,
members at that meeting. There would be another DRSC meeting once they submitted their full application, and then there'd be a planning commission meeting once they submitted the full application.
okay. Yeah, I see there's no items for the 22nd. Okay, so now we're looking at November. All right. Is there any other discussion before we take a motion for adjournment? All right, I'll move we adjourn this planning commission meeting to the next regular. Do you want to do November, or do you want me to just let you cancel it and we'll do to the 22nd?
I think usually we recommend we cancel it and
All right,
we'll
so
send
I
a
will,
notice.
we adjourn tonight, this meeting of the planning commission to the next regular meeting of the planning commission that is scheduled for Wednesday, October 22nd, 2025, 6 PM here at City Council Chambers. That's my motion to adjourn. Any second?
Second.
Okay, we'll give it to Commissioner Freeman, and all those in favor of adjourning? Aye?
Hey,
We are adjourned.
I gotta go check out the little.